Nans, you need a black hoodie. Otherwise, you don't look like Ghostface. What are
Didn't
you
get the
doing?
memo.
We're not gonna murder people. I'm trying to unmute McCurdy as he's muting.
Charlie, you and I are the killers, and he's the victim.
And he's the victim.
He's Nev Campbell. You got to stand by your Nans. You know what I mean?
Perfect. Slashing your nans. Okay. Our members, we had some members jump ship. So how about instead of picking somebody to honor, instead we honor the dishonorable who abandoned us. Canceled their ranked memberships.
Yay.
Or at least didn't renew.
Didn't renew, yeah. We still love you.
Become a member.
Become a member.
If you aren't a member, become a member.
We're still here.
Hit that like button. I'm gonna hit it right now.
Yeah, we always need. Yeah,
please. We never do this stuff.
Like, because we have
like,
6,
subscribe,
essentially
become
means
a member.
Screaming out into
Discord.
the void with just our closest homeboys hearing it and feeling that love. Anyway, okay,
hearing all the love.
The sacred 2023 movies list is Infinity Pool still at the top with its satanic grandeur. Creed 3, M3gan, Missing, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Magic Mike's Last Dance, Knock at the Cabin, Plane, Cocaine Bear. How you guys doing?
So great.
Great?
Well, I had a great morning, and
that's not what I heard, Nans.
Super unproductive day.
That's not what I heard.
Did you get off the couch all day, Nans?
Oh, I took a long nap. That's for sure.
Well, that's good. Now you're prepared. Speaking of a long nap, no, I can't.
Just that's kidding. The worst transition.
If this is a bad movie, I could be like, speaking of falling asleep at the theater. But no. Anyway, but yeah. Let me. By the way, we are now finally broadcasting in 1080p. So
nice.
But I'm.
I'm
anyway,
broadcasting in 1080 glitch.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As usual, thank you. You cheapskate. Just buy a cable or something.
Anyway. Okay. Sure.
Okay. Quick review time. So. Scream 6 continues the wildly meta and self-aware film industry commentary of the Scream series with all of the familiar winks and nods to what it's doing as it's telling you what it's doing while it's doing it. These movies are something you just got to sit back and adore for what they are. People in a movie talking about movies while trying to guess the end of their own movie. It's like somebody taking a joke way too far, but because they're aware that they're doing so, it takes something otherwise trite to a level that is just plain clever. If Scream, aka Scream 5, was all about analyzing the reboot, sequel, requel phenomenon and toxic fandom, Scream 6 is about the franchise where everything has to be bigger and bloodier than everything that came before, while also ceremoniously killing off select legacy characters that would never have been killed back during the initial sequels. However, that's not what this movie is, which is unfortunate as this is a series that's all about each installment knowing exactly what installment it is. The film commentary dialogue should have been about the nostalgia and fan service trend, especially when a major part of the movie is a literal Ghostface killer shrine. Instead, it's as if all of the meta commentary was just more of the same franchise talk from the last movie. So while this installment may have the horrifically entertaining set pieces that are a franchise staple, it doesn't have the same level of purpose in its self-awareness, and once that core element of Scream is weakened, it's nothing more than a run-of-the-mill slasher flick. Please, Scream producers, if you're going to succeed with this rebooted series, we need you to escalate to absurdity. We need you to jump the shark while also being self-aware that you are doing so. Otherwise, you're just giving us more of the same, thereby becoming one of the washed-up franchises you were once so great at making fun of. Did that make sense?
I think it made sense.
Because we have meta stuff going on. So anytime you have meta stuff going on, everything kind of gets cloudy. But overall, for me, I worry that these movies are, because I'm a huge fan of these movies. They're so damn fun, and if you obsess about
Yeah, they're
movies,
good.
and if you're all you want to do is talk about movies and stories, and then you have these ones that they're about celebrating all those things. They're not just movies; they're movies about movies. I worry that these are just slipping back into the territory of just being movies versus being a movie about movies. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? It's losing
I
meta touch, but it's still pretending that it has a meta touch, but it's
It was
losing
sprinkled
the
in
meta
there, but it's
touch.
not
It's,
super.
it's sprinkled in there in a way that was like just like
It needs to be at the forefront.
yeah.
yeah.
So it's the movie
I
didn't know what it was, and
Yeah.
that worries me.
What was that
Sure.
face you made, McCurdy?
It was Charlie giving me a headache.
Oh, Charlie gave me a headache last night.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
The Kraken did.
The Kraken.
Did.
It's
So,
Charlie giving me. It's Chucky Rance giving me a headache.
dude, McCurdy, I am only here to torture you.
I
and
know.
My only goals are to annoy you and make Nans laugh. That's it.
Awesome.
That's all
I
I
love
ever
it.
try to do while I sit here.
I
So,
appreciate it.
Anyway,
Thanks,
McCurdy,
buddy.
what you got? Can you briefly go through 6 movies? Briefly go through 6.
Do you want me to? Well, I was going to do that at the end,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
let
what
me
you
go
got?
through. Let me go through about this movie, and then at the end, we're going to go through each movie one by one, and just talk about what each one was about.
Mhm.
We're going to talk about who the killer was, just real briefly. Like I don't want to go through
Brief.
every single detail, but just real briefly. It's getting really weird and convoluted.
I'm okay going long tonight. I don't know when y'all are getting up, but I have a lot to say. Even if I'm
You
the
always
last one standing, you both
always have a
cut,
lot to
both of you
say.
get like removed, and then it's just
Yeah.
me sitting here just shouting.
Did you hire somebody from our past to kill us while we're doing this podcast?
That would be so awesome if that like suddenly just
Just two
Ghostface
people
popped up.
like we got stabbed.
Yeah. Okay, real quick before you move on with
Oh,
some
no.
trivia.
All right.
So I showed up to the theater and I messed up. I guess I showed up during the 3D showtime versus the 2D.
Uh-oh.
So I was like, fine. I don't really see 3D, but I was like, whatever, I'm here. I'm not gonna wait an hour just to see it in 2D. So I go in, I got my glasses.
It was
like
I
5
didn't
people
even know
there.
there was a 3D.
Yeah, there was a
With-
3D.
Yeah.
That's
So
stupid.
and
It's all about Dolby Cinemas,
they
guys.
didn't
Come on.
really they didn't movies already have depth. They don't need 3D. Anyway, so the first 5 minutes of the movie plays and there was something wrong with the 3D. It wasn't working. So whether you had the glasses on or off, it just was like a blurry mess. So, so I'm like, oh God, not only did I show up to the wrong showtime, but now I have to endure this. So a hero of the group immediately ran out, grabbed management, came back and was like, they're going to look into it. We're like, yeah, So then at some point, suddenly the movie just froze. Like it was on pause. And I'm like, who sat on the remote? And so again, you have 5 people. So they're like, but then we're sitting there, movie pause,
5 people.
right? And the projectionist is moving stuff. So there's like these like shadows and these weird lights moving across the screen. And it's quiet. It's dead quiet. And I'm sitting there and I was like I actually vocalized. I turn around, I go, this is actually scary, and everybody kind of uncomfortably chuckles because I was like, this would be the greatest. Like if a real Ghostface came in and started murdering everybody, like that would have been.
Don't say that.
Legendary.
Don't say that.
I'm saying it because that
Don't say that.
I was like, is this the experience I signed up for? Like
right.
I'm about to get serial murdered.
Hey,
for real.
Well,
That's what
here's
it
a question.
felt like, dude. It was
I need you
so
to
I
pull this
know
up.
I was Ghostface for
let's
several
start with
Halloweens
this.
as a kid.
McCurdy
How about
was
you guys?
too.
Let's start with this slide first, just because I want to get this out of the way. I spent a lot of time on this one. I just want to let you
Clearly.
know.
It looks
Because
like
I was like, oh, I'm going to do... First, I was like, let's do like Ghostface killing Drew Barrymore, but I couldn't find a good photo. And then I was like, oh yeah, Scream 2, they're in the movie theater. And I'm thinking this is probably what Charlie was experiencing while he was in the movie theater.
You honor me by
And
inviting me
of
to
course,
my
all the ghost faced around you were actually Baskin Robbins, because we know Charlie hates Baskin Robbins. It's an ongoing narrative.
Robbins is in the second movie. The second Scream 2, they're sitting there talking about how the sequel's never as good as the first one, and they're sitting there eating Baskin Robbins, and yeah, nah.
All right, let me get into it. Because I've got to have a lot to talk about, and it's obnoxious and stupid how much I have to talk about this movie.
Same.
Not that I didn't like the movie. So let's get down to it. Let's get ranked. Let's do a deep dive, shall we? Let's in channel our inner Randy Meeks. If you're a fan of the series, you know who Randy Meeks is. All right.
The names are legendary, but we'll get to that.
Yes.
Randy Meeks.
All right. Scream 6. Ranked 2023 review, directed by, I'm going to butcher some names here. Get ready. Matt
ready.
Bentalenti Olpin. I guess I'm going to call him Olpin. I don't know. And Tyler Gillette. And then written by James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, and based off characters by Kevin Williamson. Can't butcher those names.
You should, in the future, you should display these names so people can read them. There you go.
And then just be like, well, they can look them up. They can look them up.
I guess, but yeah, okay.
All right, so Kevin Williamson, starting off, Scream was created by writer Kevin Williamson. Williamson based the story on a serial killer from Florida named Danny Rolling, this was like around 1994, who used a Kabar knife. That's what they're called, similar to the one you see in the films. That basically that knife that the ghost killer has. It's that knife. The script was originally titled Scary Movie before it was titled Scream. So that's kind of where they got the parody title. He wrote the sequel and the fourth one. So he wrote 1, 2, and 4. He didn't write the other ones. He didn't write 3 or these last 2. He's an executive producer on this film. The first 4 were directed by Wes Craven, best known for the Nightmare on Elm Street series, another slasher, of course. Moving on, we've got our 2 writers here. We got James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, returned from Scream 2022, aka Scream 5, to write this film. Vanderbilt has several films under his belt, including, which was not in pun, which now after reading it, I'm like, that kind of reads like a pun. Built and Belt, whatever, including one of my favorite David Fincher films, Zodiac, also about a crazed killer in a major metropolitan area. He also had some other franchise films under his belt, including the first Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, White House Down, and Independence Day Resurgence. Busick, on the other hand, hasn't written as much, but did get his start writing for the show Stand Against Evil. And he also wrote with Vanderbilt on Ready or Not 2019, which was also directed by our directors. Here we've got Matt Bentinelli Opelin. God damn it, Matt. Such a long name. Come on, quit being so Italian. And Tyler Gillette. Tyler Gillette. I'm laughing at myself. Opelin and Gillette had formed
changed names like that at Ellis Island. Come on.
I know. Just keep going. Opelin and Gillette had formed a directing group called Radio Silence with other collaborators and worked on such films such as VHS, which was a horror anthology, and Southbound. As stated earlier, they together directed Ready or Not and then went on to direct the previous Scream film. Next up, we've got our core 4 in this movie. The core
said it over and over and over.
This is basically, I cringed at this because back in the day I had a group of friends and we called ourselves the Core 4. So I was like, it's not original, but I've heard it before. First, we got Melissa Barrier, plays Sam Carpenter.
It's Barara?
Barara? Is that how it is? Okay. Again, butchering names here. That's all I do on the show.
Memory, so.
Barara. You got Sam, who plays Sam Carpenter, daughter to Billy Loomis. Loomis and Carpenter are references to Halloween. Loomis was the detective guy who was played by Donald Pleasance, who was in our, when we talk about our Bond series, he was the first Blofeld that you saw on screen. And then Carpenter I'm assuming is probably a reference to John Carpenter, who created and directed Halloween. She's probably best known for In the Heights from 2021 before she did the last Scream movie. But she had done plenty of Spanish speaking films and television prior to this. Then next up, we've got probably the biggest name in this movie as of right now is Jenna Ortega, plays Tara Carpenter, Sam's sister. I probably don't have to say much about her. Like Jonathan Majors, her star is rising fast, and with the success of the Netflix series Wednesday, she also had a role in the film X, which starred Infinity Pool's Mia Goth, which we talked about earlier this year. Next, we got Mason Gooding, plays Chad Meeks Martin, nephew to Randy Martin, aka, or I guess it's Randy Meeks. I don't know why I put Randy Martin, but yeah, Randy Meeks, aka Jamie Kennedy's character. He had a small role in Booksmart. He was in a show on Hulu called Love Victor, and a movie called Moonshot. He's been in stuff. He's just been in stuff. Then we got
funny that Randy's nephew is a Chad. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Randy, his name
Chad.
is Randy Meeks. Like his whole hook is that he's the virginal film nerd, and his nephew is a Chad. That's just funny.
Jasmine Savy Brown plays Mindy Meeks Martin, and she's the niece of Jamie Kennedy's character again. She has a main role in Showtime's Yellow Jacket, and she also had a small role. This was interesting because I didn't pick this up. She had a small role in Missing, which was another film we watched earlier this year.
She was the best friend.
She plays June. She plays the June version of her, doesn't she? Or is she the best friend? If she's the best friend, then apparently whatever I looked up was not correct.
Version.
Isn't she the
or the actor, the Netflix version?
Remember the main girl had a friend who came over?
Well, then maybe that's who it was. Because I thought when I was looking my stuff up, I thought that's who it was. Yeah.
Oh, you're thinking that she was the
Netflix version of June.
Oh,
yeah, I think that's what I read, but maybe I have it wrong on it.
We need
bad.
Nance. Could you deep dive into this?
Deep dive.
You slam that keyboard until we figure out exactly who
Hack
she
it.
was in Missing, because
Yeah,
I would
I'm
assume
looking
that
into
she was the. You know what I'm talking about? The
and I
friend who
think
was there
she
trying
might
to
have been the
do
best friend
whole thing.
character, but I thought I read she was the actress June version, the Netflix version, when they do the recreation of the events that happened in the movie.
It's been a while since I've seen
Yeah,
Missing.
you haven't seen it in a while.
Could be wrong.
All right, next up, we got the legacy characters. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Okay, so first up, not much to say here. Courtney Cox turns for the 6th installment of this franchise as Gale Weathers. She's the only cast member to appear in every film aside from Roger L. Jackson, who does the voice of Ghostface, which I wouldn't really count because he's not in the movie. He's the voice of the, you know what I'm
Do
saying.
they ever put him in? Do they ever give him a cameo?
I should have looked that up and I never
would
did.
think so at this point.
Hayden Panettiere returns as the character of Kirby Reed, who supposedly survived her stabbings in Scream 4 because she has the cheerleading powers from Heroes now, because that's how that one works. I made that joke. I thought about that and I was like, oh my God, has anybody put those two together? Panettiere was on a 4 to 5 year. It just depends on how you look at it. She was on an acting hiatus. I guess she had a kid and she decided she was going to take a break for a while
and some face surgery.
Babies do it.
Yeah. And then she actually had reached out to the filmmakers and were like, hey, I hear that you guys are doing another Scream. I'd like to have my character come back. I didn't know this. Apparently, like, I forgot she was in 4 completely. I was like, wait, she was in 4? Completely forgot she was in 4. I guess a lot of fans really liked her in 4, and they were sad to see her get killed off. I don't know.
Legitimately, you just keep hearing fan favorite, and when I hear something over and over, I question
that because I'm like, I don't remember.
Highly suspect that they paid a PR firm to have a bunch of bots just keep associating her with fan favorite. She's good, she's fine, but like fan favorite implies she was like.
I thought she was pretty stiff in 6.
In 6.
I mean, she hadn't been acting in a while, and we'll get into that. But anyway, and then you got Skeet. I can't believe his name's Skeet.
Skeet, yeah. Skeet
Ulrich returns for the 3rd time in the franchise. 2nd time as a vision of Billy Loomis. Didn't know ghosts could age, guys. We really need to work on that one, guys. Come on.
Yeah. Well, they hit it.
Okay, hold on. Nance.
Well,
going back to last person, Nico says everyone loved Kirby in 4. So
Nico is our resident.
He's the resident Scream
fan. Yeah, like super fan. Yeah.
So Nico is the bot. We got it. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, moving on.
How much are they paying you, Nico?
How much are they paying you, Nico? All right, now let's go to the elephant in the room on this movie. So no Sydney. Sydney Prescott does not exist in this movie. But she sends her love, guys. She sends her love. I hate when movies do this when they're like, okay, well, we got to explain something away. Here's a quick little throwaway dialogue to explain why she's not here.
Well, again, okay.
Silly.
We all year we're going to be talking about how certain things, again, early on it was all these movies had weird themes of family, and then what were we talking about last week? There's no Sylvester Stallone. Why is there no Sly in Rocky?
You know what's funny is
Sydney in Scream.
I didn't have to recreate that little no sign. I was just like, I kept the one from last week. So I was just like, copy and paste, baby. So Campbell, no relation to our Lord and Savior, Martine Campbell. I just wanted to make that joke. To summarize her statements to the press, she felt that the salary that the production had offered her was inadequate and undervalued, which she brought to the franchise. And I can read the whole quote here if you want. It was a money thing. Basically,
I wonder how much it was.
Charlie, I'm waiting for you to roll your eyes. You ready, Charlie? You ready? I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read it. You ready?
They're rolling already.
Okay. All right. As a woman, I've had to work extremely hard in my career to establish my value, especially when it comes to Scream. I felt that the offer that was presented to me did not equate to the value I have brought to the franchise. It's been very difficult decision to move on.
What does her having a vagina have to do with anything that she said? Why does
to
she have to
all of my Scream fans, I love you. You've always been so
why are you making it racist?
Incredibly supportive to me. I'm forever grateful to you and to what this franchise has given me over the past 25 years. And then the filmmakers did state
just
they were
be
like,
happy you're still working, Chica. As a woman, you should.
Yeah,
is she
in anything?
Work. How about that?
I don't. I would have. But honestly, she probably gets residuals off these movies anyway. So I don't think we need to worry about Neve Campbell.
Okay.
I don't think we need to worry, guys.
Here's
should be okay.
Should they pay her well? Yeah, they should do right by her. But at the same time, this is a business, and that's how it goes. You're not the young. That's the same for all of them. Like, remember? When
we don't know. But to
I wonder how big of a part she would have been. It's just like a cameo, and they're just like, "Here's some money."
But they did also say that
old Dewey looks in the 5th movie, and the point being that you're not young forever, and eventually you're going to be replaced. It's like it's like an older Bond being all pissed off that he's not getting paid. It's like, well, you're replaceable now because you're old. It's the nature of the business.
I get it. I think the other part of the other thing though is that they did have to change a lot of the script because I think they intended her to be more in the script in this one, and they had to change the script. From what I read, they made it sound like that her not being the movie changed a lot of what was in this movie. But I think maybe they had.
She should have played ball. Like I get it.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
It is what it is. But it reminds me of Robert Duvall turning down Godfather 3, and it was all over money. And it's like, dude, I get it.
You could have made a good movie.
Point, you want to make money. I get it. But
true.
It's a business, and now the whole series suffers just because you wanted a little bit more money, but you're not the star anymore. Sorry about your bruised ego.
I don't necessarily agree. Okay.
Anymore. So her not being in this weakened this movie. So you think that
I don't know.
She should have,
I don't know if it weakened.
okay.
I don't. The thing is, I don't know if her not being in this movie weakened it.
I think this is the weakest.
I don't think it did.
Hear what she would have done.
Yeah, I don't know what it would have been, but yeah, they would have.
She's just in the museum.
I'm that without knowing what it would have been, but I do. I have to assume that this movie would have been stronger, and why not? Okay, okay. Let me flip now. Stupid ass producers should have paid her a little bit more money and then respectfully and ceremoniously killed her off. That would have been better than not having her at all, because being killed, like some reviewer was talking about how pissed off he was that Dewey got killed. And I'm like, no, dude, killing him is almost a way of honoring him. And they even say it when Ghostface kills. Okay. We're
getting too much into it.
Spoilers from here on. Spoilers, even though
we do. Yeah, we do have to put a spoiler warning after this one because I do have one other thing we're going to talk about. I have a couple more things we're going to talk about. And then we'll go through the movies once and once.
Go ahead. I'll go, Mom. Go ahead.
All right, go, Mom. We'll talk about more stuff later. All right, let's talk about the killers in this movie. So this is a spoiler. So if you haven't seen the movie,
then we're in spoilers.
Yeah, we are. So spoilers.
Okay,
You've been warned.
Hang on. Let me finish what I was going to say then.
Oh my God.
Is that moment where they kill Dewey in the 5th movie, and Ghostface says it's an honor. It's an honor to kill you, and that's like, in a way, it's people are pissed off. Oh, he shouldn't have died. No, but to be killed ceremoniously and with heavy effect is to be honored.
Yeah.
In a movie franchise like this, and that's why with this movie, Gale Weathers gets attacked, stabbed viciously. You're basically like, okay, she's dead, but she doesn't die. I thought that was disrespectful.
So few people.
Let's just
respectfully kill her.
Let's move on. I think we should talk about that more, but let's move on, please. Let's please move on. Let's talk about the killers of this movie. Guess what? Okay. There are 3, maybe you could say 5 killers in this movie. Technically, they're one of them's in a refrigerator. Let's just say that. Okay, so in the middle here, we got Dermot Mulroney, plays Detective Wayne Bailey, a.k.a. Richie's father. Richie was Jack Quaid, a.k.a. the killer from the last movie, and we'll talk about that more. Too many roles to tell you, but you've probably seen him in something. He's around. He's been in stuff.
Yeah.
Then you've got Jack. You got Jack Champion, plays Ethan Laundrie.
Champion.
He plays their like Chad's roommate, but then secretly he's also a.k.a. Richie's brother. He had a role in this year's Avatar: Way of Water, which has been nominated for tons of accolades, blah, blah, blah. And then we've got Liana Leburito.
The burrito?
I can't say her name without laughing. Plays Quinn Bailey, and she plays Mindy and Tara's roommate, and she's Richie, and she's a.k.a. Richie's sex positive sister. You got to remember that, guys. It's very important you remember she's sex positive sister.
Definitely not.
And she's in the movie.
She's sex positive.
She's sex positive. And then we've got
if you
Anthony.
Just say it in a positive way, it means it's good. Anyway, go on.
Anyway, you've got Anthony.
I'm murder positive, which means that
I know you
killing
are.
people is okay because I'm murder positive.
All right, guys.
I'm killing positive.
Calm down. Anthony Volori. I'm butchering that one real bad. I'm going to call him Anthony Ravioli today. Okay, guys? He's Anthony Ravioli.
Yeah, definitely from now on, we need the names on screen.
I will not do that.
So then we can, then it's even funnier how
I will not do that. Just to make you mad.
And then laugh at you harder as you mispronounce it.
You should. Thank you. He plays Jason Carvey and is very briefly the killer. You've seen him in the MCU Spider-Man films as well as Grand Budapest Hotel, among other films. Reminds me of someone we went to high school with. You have to guess. I'm going to just leave it there. Like, you guys have to guess and tell me later who he reminds me of.
Oh, okay. Well,
he's someone we all went.
I agree with this, Nico. I agree. This is one of those moves that was just like a fresh move. Here's Ghostface killing, and then immediately rips the mask off.
That was one of the good parts of this movie. Like one of the highlights of the movie. One of the highlights of the movie. Thought it was great.
Sure.
And then these are just general observations that I had made that I didn't find listed as specific. Like the directors were like, yeah, we were channeling this. For one, and this film takes place in New York, seems to be a nod to Jason Takes Manhattan, which is, I think, Friday the 13th 8, which I think on TV it's on a TV in the background when Jason comes home or something. It's on a television. Also, the fact that the film is the second with 2 main characters, Sam and Tara, in which one of them has a connection to the original killer, is very similar to Halloween 4 and 5. Respectively. So like in that franchise, they got like what's her name decided she didn't want to come back, so they had to kind of create new characters to kind of fill those roles as like who the Scream King characters were going to be. So it's like Jason's like long lost sister or niece or something like that, and they made this weird Michael's long lost sister niece. And also this film was made in Canada, which is probably why it doesn't feel as New York as it probably could have. Like I don't know what it is. It's just when you watch the movie, there's times where I'm like, you don't see as many New York landmarks as you probably want to in something that says, "Oh, this movie takes place in New York," and it's because they
it's
filmed
like,
it in
oh, it's in New
Canada.
York, and then it just takes place largely in an
Yeah,
apartment
like
building and
Yeah.
in
they
theater.
could
Like
have Central
it's just kinda like,
Park or all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff.
a good New York movie has like at least 1 or 2 landmarks that like you toss in, especially
yeah.
like Central Park or something. There was no
So really
unnecessary
all you
sex
get
scene,
is the
SB.
subway,
You get
and
Well, okay.
they're in
SB, on
college,
that
so it's
note,
like it
what I
almost
do
doesn't matter.
appreciate about this film series is I don't think there's ever any nudity, right? And that makes me like this series more. With Friday the 13th, there's
I don't
tons of
remember.
gratuitous sex and nudity, and that's kind of core to that. It's important to that, but these movies would be PG-13 if not for the I think they're all R, right? They would be
Yeah,
PG-13 if not for the violence, but I appreciate that they don't have gratuitous sex. I think
yeah.
that elevates these movies. I think it maintains a certain
Yeah.
integrity and intelligence to them, right?
Mhm.
So, there's like I said, if you're like a film freak, you have to love the Scream movies. But my biggest gripe with this is that that hook, that main reason why you love Scream movies as like a film buff, um, is diminished in this. As I said in my opening, it's diminished in this to where it's like the movie doesn't know what it is anymore, as opposed to all of them knew what they were.
So
So
speaking of that, let's talk. I'm going to go through every single movie, all 6 movies, and we're going to talk about what is that movie commenting on or being meta about, and who the killers were, so you can know. You're like, if haven't seen these in a while, and then be reminded, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what. I'm not going to go through all the details, just
yeah,
general,
like
like
I
that's
said,
what's going
every
on.
installment knows which installment they are.
So the first movie we've got is Scream, right? So let's recap and just talk about how each of these films are commentary to horror genres. The first Scream is a commentary on slasher films, which by the time in the mid '90s had kind of run its course with films like Halloween, Friday the 13th, even Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street, who directed the first 4, like we had said previously, first 4 Scream movies. And just so we cover our bases, the killers in this movie was Billy Loomis and Stu Mocker are the killers. Something they are worded, because I don't know how monetization works with that word. Are worded and murdered Sydney's mother because she had an affair with Billy's father and destroyed his family. So he wanted to get back at her and decided to do this whole ghost face thing. So that was the first movie. That's the first movie. It's about slasher movies. But then the next.
Also let me chime in
Okay,
as
go
you're
ahead.
going. So it
Sure.
is more like that's the story, but it is more or less remaking Halloween with tons of self-aware commentary regarding horror movie tropes.
Sure.
Like more
Mhm.
than any other movie, it is Halloween, and I in one maybe in the third in 5, uh uh the main Sam
Yeah.
Carpenter is explaining to her boyfriend what the movies are, and he's like, "That sounds like Halloween." You know, it's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
a bunch of suburban kids get butchered by a guy in a Halloween mask," and he's like, "Are you talking about Halloween?" "No, I'm talking about Stab." Well, it sounds a lot like Halloween. So anyway, continue.
All right. So then we get on to Scream 2. The film focuses on the horror sequel and trying to be as good as the original, as well as all the tropes that go into doing so. Debbie Salt is AKA Nancy Loomis, who's Billy's mother, is out for revenge. And then Mickey Altieri, which is played by Timothy Oliphant, he wants to get caught so that he could become famous for all these murders. And that's the second movie. And then, of course, like again, it's trying to trope off of sequels, and I think it was more sequels in general, not necessarily like the first or second, or sorry, the second or third or fourth. It just in general, there's always the next film. And then we get to. Do you have anything you want to
Here,
add?
well, just
Yep.
yeah, just it's acknowledging again the meta. Like I'm more for me, it's all about the meta. These movies have significance because of their meta awareness, and if you get rid of the meta awareness, you weaken the movies overall. As I said in my opening. But acknowledging that sequels generally suck and tend to dial everything up to compensate for a lack of originality. That's the core of Scream 2.
Yeah. And then we've got Scream 3 is the film about trilogies. So you're seeing less horror films in here. And I remember at the time, some of these movies have more movies in there, like Star Wars has more films now, and so does Alien. But at the time, the height of the rage was like, you got to have a trilogy of movies is like what you wanted to go for. Indiana Jones had a trilogy, Back to the Future has a trilogy, Star Wars has a trilogy, Alien had a trilogy. Like all these films had trilogies, and this is like into the 90s, 2000 when this movie comes out. That was the thing. That was the thing to have. And as Nico said it, his man was Roman, because Nico is murder positive, everybody. Nico is murder positive. Roman Bridger, the director of the Stab films, which is the meta universe version of the Scream movies within Scream. So in Scream, the universe, there are this series of movies that their events are based off of called Stab.
Does he? Okay, sorry. In that universe, does he direct the first? No.
I want to say he does.
No, the director of Stab 1 was Robert Rodriguez.
Oh, okay. I know he's the director of the third one because they're doing the third movie and he's the director. Yeah, he's the director of 3. Yeah. So he's the director of the third one, and he was all along secretly Sidney's half brother and convinced Stu and Billy from the first one back then to kill his mom because his mom had rejected him.
Wait.
That's how that one all goes.
That I missed.
Yeah.
He's the one who convinced. I thought that he just. Okay. Yeah. All these movies.
Yeah. It's weird and convoluted. But remember, this was when it was going to be a trilogy, and this would have been the last movie in that franchise at the time.
Yeah.
So we thought. So it's like he had orchestrated everything.
It was for a while.
It was, and this is 2000. So this is year 2000. Yeah. Now we move on to Scream 4. And remember, okay, so wind the clock back. Remember when we were it was between 2000 and 2010.
Hang on.
You couldn't go. Hold on. You couldn't go to a movie theater. Hold on. You couldn't go to a movie theater without seeing a poster or a trailer for a horror slasher film remake. Like remakes were all the rage at the time. Like anytime you watched the movie theater, it was like, oh, it's a new Halloween movie. Wait, it's the remake. Or, I've got some of these other listed: Texas Chainsaw Massacre, House of Wax, Hills Have Eyes, Amityville Horror. Like these were all horror remakes that came out this within this short period of time. And now, again, like we've heard it all before. It's like Hollywood's out of ideas, of course, but like these were all very specific, updated versions of these movies. And then in this movie, and then I read this and I'm like, this is so fucking weird that they did this. But Julia Roberts' niece, aka Emma Roberts, aka Jill Roberts, which is the name of her character, which is so weird. She's like super meta. And aka Sidney's cousin is the main killer, wanting the fame of her cousin, the fame that her cousin had. So she's trying to orchestrate this whole murder so that she can basically become the next Sidney Prescott.
She's literally remaking the events of the original movie where she is both the perpetrator and the victim, so she can reap tons of attention. Again, every single installment is brilliant so far as it knows what it is. Scream 4 being a remake, literally remaking the events of the first one. It's and like they're just every one of them is brilliant. Even the third one that everybody shits on is still brilliant. The only thing I wrote on that was that the core thing is that what Randy says, he's like for Scream 3, he's like, you're either in another movie, just a subsequent movie, which means it's the same rules as the sequel, as number 2.
Yeah.
Or you're in a completed trilogy. And if you're in a completed trilogy, then it's going to go back to the beginning. There's going to be some major truth that is revealed that changes the entire trilogy, right? And to your point, it was how the brother convinced Loomis.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were talking about 3. I wouldn't have jumped you if I didn't.
We're all over the place because
didn't even jump you if I knew that. Sorry. And then hold on, but you jumped me. So again, it's Julia Roberts' niece, And then also Macaulay Culkin's brother. Super meta now.
Yeah.
I don't know why they made that. That had to have been an intentional casting choice, but it's Macaulay Culkin's brother, aka Rory Culkin, plays Charlie Walker, and he wants to be the new Randy Meeks for the narrative of the remake that they're creating, that they're spinning.
Yeah.
Basically, this new idea. It's like, oh well, I'll be the new Randy, and you're going to be the new Sydney, for this new story. And of course, like they both get their comeuppance. She, I think, kills him, and so then they move on now. Which I literally when this movie came out, I think people were like,
hang on. I'm gonna keep jumping in every time you finish.
All right.
I'm gonna keep jumping in. So just with like the little.
Do you want me to go back to 4? Are we still talking about 4?
Go back to 4. Yeah.
Okay.
So again, it's the remake, right? Like, and they say repeatedly, don't fuck with the original. That's one of the direct lines.
It's the line at the end of the movie.
Sydney. Yeah.
Don't fuck with the original.
But they're all commenting on what's going on in the horror genre at the time. So they're talking about torture porn with like Saw, contemporary horror flicks, talking about how played out Scream is, taking franchises too far. Nothing's original. Everything getting way too complicated for its own good. One of my favorite lines is, Stab 5, which again, Stab is the Scream movies, but within the universe of Scream, they're the Stab movies. Stab 5 has time travel, which is by far the worst, which is a perfect line, right? Like, that's fantastic. She does this whole thing to get attention by remaking the events of the original. But going back to my intro, the whole thing is like, I wish these movies would start doing the ridiculous stuff that the Stab movies were doing, right? Do some supernatural stuff, do some time travel stuff, because you cannot do this forever unless you are self-aware, transforming these movies into absurdity, just like they say in 4. They say they're leading up to jumping the shark, and they should, as opposed to trying to prolong this as long as they can, because if they keep prolonging it without accelerating it, it is going to turn into another washed up franchise. And I don't want to see that happen to my beloved Scream franchise. I would love to see it escalate in a way that we could be like, holy shit, they're jumping the shark, but they know they're jumping the shark, and that's an enjoyable experience, versus pathetically trying to keep this going for too long and weakening it and undermining why it came out in the first place.
So now we finally move on to Scream 5, which is just... Wait, hold on. I went backwards. Oop, my bad. Scream. It's just Scream. But hold on. Don't say anything, because it's literally just called just Scream, as commentary of the legacy sequels just sharing the same name as the original, i.e. Halloween 2018 was a sequel to Halloween, and also Shaft, which for some weird reason there are more Shaft sequels, but like 2 of the Shaft sequels are just titled Shaft, which is weird. I don't understand why they do that. Anyway, and so instead of calling it Scream 5 or Scream V, which was so easy because they obviously did it for this movie, they just called it, or Scream 5, they just called it Scream. But in the movie itself, they make that joke. They say, like, why is it called Stab? Why could they just call it Stab 8? We know it's the 8th Stab movie. Like, they make that joke within the movie.
You're not fooling
it's almost
anybody.
It's almost a joke when you see the movie. Like, at first you're like, oh, I don't want to watch that movie because it calls it Scream. It should be called Scream 5. And then when you see the movie, you're like, oh, it's a joke, because they're making that joke. They know people hate that. Like, they're doing it on purpose. I love that. I actually kind of like that. That's actually kind of weird.
That's why it's perfect.
And then this film is commentating on the trend of legacy sequels that are sort of passing the torch sequels to a new generation of characters, rather than them being complete reboots or remakes. Which means, like, if it's a remake, it's like we're taking a title movie and then we're just taking that script and changing that story with new actors, new characters. Like King Kong has been remade multiple times, just that story. Versus like a reboot would be like, oh, we're taking a franchise, restarting it, like our Bond series. We talk about, like, Casino Royale is supposed to be a reboot of the Bond series. So we're starting fresh, starting from a new series. Or Batman Begins. That's a reboot. That's considering starting a new franchise, but not necessarily in a specific film.
Gone. This isn't
either of those. Yeah. So we're keeping the same canon, but instead of like we're doing a sequel, but instead we're basically passing the torch. So everything that happened, but this is like starting anew, which is basically what this movie does. So
Force Awakens.
Examples would be Star Wars Force Awakens, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Jurassic World, etc. And it's also about toxic fans and elevated horror to some extent, but and mostly with the killer. So in this movie, we have Jack Quaid, aka Richie Kirch, and Mikey. Her real name is Mikey Madison, and aka plays Amber Freeman, and they are the killers who turn up to be obsessive stab fans, and they want to continue the franchise, but they want to do it right because I should have included Ghostbusters 2016 on here because like when people talk about toxic fandom, I don't think it's so much the Star Wars stuff as much as it is the whole Ghostbusters story. Like the whole like we remade Ghostbusters, people hated it, now we have to come back and do it. I mean, they kind of do that with Halloween as well. Like they remade it, Rob Zombie remade it, so then we're going back to the original storyline, timeline, and retelling that story.
Scream 4, when they say don't fuck with the original, that's what they're talking about. Like don't piss on the original, but and that's why it's like I love. Okay, let me just go through my crap. It begins with talking about because 2014 had The Babadook and It Follows, which are two great horror movies, right? So it's like so what does that have to do with? Like that's highbrow horror versus mindless slashers, right? Scream is not the Scream series is not a mindless slasher so much as it's an intelligent take on a mindless slasher, right? All the movies it's talking about, be it Halloween, Jason, Friday the 13th or whatever, those are kind of mindless slashers, and it's commenting on those tropes. So that's where the brilliance is in Randy's niece, Mindy, saying, "Oh my God, he's making a requel," and everybody's like, "What is the requel?" And she lays it out. Like that's why that movie is so good, taking the fandom into account and showcasing someone whose motive is specifically to make the movies better, right? By killing in real life. And Sam says, "Are you saying I'm caught up in fan fiction?" Legacy characters teaming up with a new cast to kill the bad guy, and then by the end, Richie, who's the bad guy, says, "How can a fandom be toxic? When it's all about love,
guys.
Right?
It's about love."
Say that and that's reality. That's like a fandom. The fandom is like, don't destroy the originals by and they comment on all of this stuff, right? In Scream 2022. But he says explicitly Hollywood is out of ideas, and that's what makes that movie definitely one of my faves. I think like top 2 in the series overall, because it really does own that era of all these remakes, requels, reboots, seboots, soft seboots, all the terminology. It really nails down what was at the core of it, where you have Hollywood being like, the fandom is toxic. It's like, no, the fandom just wants you to not destroy what's there, right?
Nico, Bond fandom is toxic because we have this channel.
Yeah, I mean, we are part of what they're talking about, where it's like, don't ruin the originals by and that's what I love. Like Mindy's like, they just pump a bunch of social commentary in there to try to elevate it, and they end up ruining it. It's like, yeah, basically, like, because they're out of ideas. They don't have anything fresh to say.
But but at the same time, it's like I'm of the mind of like, it doesn't matter. They still exist. You can still watch those movies. That's how I feel about Star Wars. It's like you can watch the original series and as a standalone and like them. You can watch the prequels and standalone and like them. Yeah, movies. If you want to just see the first 6 movies,
I'm like
it's hard for me now watching.
I don't care
the
how
last
much
3.
Lord of the
I'm
Rings
like,
they come out with. I will only ever watch.
You only have those 3.
Lord of the Rings.
You don't even have to watch The Hobbit.
I don't care about anything new they make. I'll never watch it, and I'll just watch my beloved. I don't care.
Like,
but
it doesn't matter. If you like those, you can like those. It's whatever.
Yeah. The point being though that in Scream 5, it's like you have all these man babies complaining that their childhood was ruined and all that, and that's where Scream comes along, takes whatever is happening, encapsulates it, right? Makes a movie, and thereby owns it. They own, like Scream 1 owns the slasher. Scream 2 owns the slasher sequel. That's the whole point of the franchise. Is they firmly they do such a good job of commenting on it that they own it.
Let
And
me
later I'm
Charlie,
gonna
let me
bring up
tee
Cabin
off.
in the Woods, and we're
Let
gonna
me
talk about
tee
that even more.
off. Let me get your ducks in a row. Let me get you ready for your rant. Okay, let me tee up for your rant.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk real quick because I wrote my stuff down about Scream 6, and it's not everything about it. It's just like what we've been talking about. Like, what is this movie about? Who are the killers? That's it. But I'll tee you up, right? So this film, Scream VI, Scream 6. This film is basically about franchises as a whole and how films are not just a single ongoing narrative, but a vast interconnected lore. I guess. I'm honestly not sure if it really nails down what it's trying to say. Maybe it's just talking about how legacy sequels have to stand on their own after the legacy characters have been killed off or don't exist anymore. I guess. Let's just talk about this film because before you get into it,
McCurdy. I appreciate you. You put that beautifully. Anyway, Nance.
Nance, we've been talking so long, and I haven't talked to you in forever. I haven't talked to you because you've dropped your phone in a piss toilet.
Yeah. I have been phoneless for several days
now. His phone was murdered.
So let's all shut up and just stand by our Nance real quick.
Yeah. I didn't think it was too bad. It's not in the top of the list for sure, but I would think. Whoops.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would think maybe 5, somewhere in that area.
Okay. McCurdy looks.
But yeah, I didn't dislike it. I remember I didn't watch all of them like you guys did. I have seen most of them. I can't say I've seen all of them even, but I definitely saw Scream 2022 and enjoyed that one. And this one, it's a little convoluted, I would say. And as we've already touched on, kind of.
You said you didn't or did see the last one?
I saw Scream 2022 in 2022 or whenever it came out.
So you at least seen that because I didn't see that one going into this one, and I was a little lost. But the movie does catch you up a little bit, and I was like, okay. And I did watch a little video of like who the killer was, and everything.
I didn't rewatch it, and I didn't have time to watch all the others, but definitely agree with you guys on the points of it kind of strays away from the Scream formula in a not great way. Like that's what makes the older Screams so clever is like the commentary on movies. And
the moment you lose that,
you're not enough.
You're just another slasher. The moment you no longer have the commentary, you're just another slasher. So she says, she's like, hey guys, we're in the sequel to the requel. We're in a franchise now, but we're in the sequel to the reboot. So it's like remaking the original sequel, Scream 2, where it takes place in college. And then we're also going to push the nostalgia button by referencing all the other movies. And then, so again, my conclusion is this movie should have been explicitly and repeatedly about fan service and nostalgia. It should have been okay. What is the crux of the Scream series? It's owning up to fully acknowledging what you are, right? But this movie didn't exactly do that. It just threw, it's like you said, Dan, it sprinkled in a little commentary, sprinkled it in where it was like, we're the sequel to the reboot. Movie. Well, what does that mean? Did they ever truly break that down? I don't think so. But instead, what did they have? They had a full-on ghost face killer shrine. Well, don't you think that if you're going to do that and you're going to literally have the killers with every kill referencing previous kills and killers and all that stuff, don't you think that the main theme of this movie should have been nostalgia and fan service, and that would have fueled your meta commentary? Well, no, instead they got lazy and they were just like, it's the sequel to the reboot, and literally all they say, it's the sequel to the reboot, which means that all bets are off. And I'm like, okay, you're not telling me anything then. You have nothing fresh to say. You're not doing any kind of breakdown that I can adhere to. Instead, you're just saying, you're pretending that you're saying something smart, but really you're just like, so I don't know. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all we got.
Very few people died. Like maybe
nobody died.
Nobody
Maybe all the
died.
legacy
Nobody
people should have died.
Everybody
one girl
got
gets shaken up the ladder.
Nance. Everybody, it's really easy. Nance.
Yeah,
okay.
but
Let me
like
explain this.
Sam's
Nance,
boyfriend's like, I
everybody-
called the hospital, they're good, and people we thought died, they get pulled out on stretchers and they're fine.
guys,
and it's
this
just
is
like,
why you're wrong. This is why you're wrong.
Everybody's
This is why you're wrong.
okay.
Guys, this is why you're wrong about this, okay? This is why you're wrong about this. Because they got cheerleader girls' powers, okay? Everyone got cheerleader girls' powers in this movie. And that is why they all live. That is why they all live. That's Charlie, there's your answer. That's the show Jumping the Shark. That like everyone lived. No, I agree. That was my biggest complaint was this movie has some of the best set pieces. When I say set pieces, just like sequences of how characters are getting killed.
I really like
I
the
think in a
subway.
lot of the Scream movies, like
That
the
was cool.
subway scene, the convenience store scene's really great. The
Yeah.
intro is really
Yes,
great. I wasn't a
without
huge
the meta commentary, that means nothing to me.
No,
That's
but-
just another
not a
slasher
Scream
movie.
movie.
I know, but
Yes,
with those
yes.
scenes, I was like, yeah, these are awesome. But then like you get the subway scene and it's really great, and then you're like, but she doesn't die, and then
Yeah.
like, and then the Chad gets brutally stabbed, and then he doesn't die.
insanely
People.
brutally, just like ripped to shreds, and then it's like, oh, he's fine.
And then Gail, like you and I, but like Gail gets stabbed, and like there's a moment where you're like,
Okay,
oh shit, we're gonna kill her.
Here,
off.
here would be my point. If they would start making fun of Marvel and be like, yeah, nobody ever dies, they always come back, then nobody in this movie dying and everybody coming back, I'd be like, that's brilliant. They're making fun of the tropes of the day, which is that no matter how hard anybody should have gotten it, they come back. That's brilliant. But without that added element, I'm going, you don't have your meta commentary anymore.
Yeah.
You know, hey, yeah, remember in Infinity in Civil War when War Machine, when he fell to the earth and then he ended up coming back, like just miraculously, he's okay. If they would have made a meta commentary joke about how nobody ever really dies, no matter how brutal their killing is, they end up being okay. And then at the end of the day, everybody in this movie is fine. That would have been brilliant. That would have been a very Scream thing to do. But instead, I as a cynic, I get the cynical feeling that the producers are just trying to extend this series out, and they're kind of lowering it from what it used to be, which was film commentary. They're lowering it to just being a slasher film. So this is less of a Scream. Remember, you know how with Bond, we're always talking about the difference between a good movie and a good Bond movie? This is maybe a good slasher movie, but not a good Scream movie because it doesn't have anything to say about horror movies or about the horror franchise or movies in general.
I think
That's the
my
tragedy.
point. I think you were when you were talking about this, you're like, oh, it should have jumped the shark. My point should have been,
Yes.
my point should have been more in line. I think this movie should have been more in line with, can the movie survive without, because like, of course, Nev Campbell decides not to come back. Great. It's an opportunity for the screenwriters to say, okay, how do we use that for a sequel? Okay, how can a movie that is a part of a franchise survive without the main leads? We're already seeing that with the Marvel films. People are saying the Phase 4 movies aren't that great because we don't see Robert Downey Jr., we don't see Chris Evans. And I mean, that's like a very simplified view of that, but like, you're not seeing that. The Jurassic World movies were like they did a sequel and it kind of failed, and then they did another sequel and that one really failed. So like,
Did they ever?
do wonder,
To your point, did they ever say that in this movie? Did they ever say
no? And
well,
they
wait,
don't, and that's what I think
Sydney
they should have
come
said.
back, if Sydney doesn't come back, then none of this means anything. And somebody's like, well, I don't know. We don't necessarily need Sydney. You know what I mean? Like,
It's
just
like, like if you had that,
like that,
then you had something like that.
That's brilliant. But no,
Can a
they're
movie,
not
can a
gonna-
franchise, can a franchise stay afloat when you don't have the original leads or something like that? Like that would have been better than what we kind of got, which was kind of like a half-baked, like, let's rush this into the theaters kind of idea, because that's kind of what it felt like. Because
they're
like
literally remaking the second movie. That's what this movie was.
I felt like there were
remaking the second movie,
there
but
were
without
scenes where
the meta commentary that made it feel like a part of the Scream series.
there was
Like,
dialogue in this
wasn't enough-
movie I didn't know
What?
this till after the fact. I didn't know this until after the fact because I went and saw 5 after that. I went home, saw 5. But there's like dialogue in this movie that is almost stripped from the first movie, or when I say the first movie, the 5th movie, where
That was what
he's
I
like,
said. That
they're
was what I
like,
said in
they're
my
like,
intro. I'm like, this
he's
is
like,
leftovers.
he's like, it was, did you not know it was so easy to blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's kind of the same cadence in which Richie says, like, it's so easy
Yeah.
to find somebody who's just open to becoming boyfriend or whatever. And like, it was very similar to what both the roommates said. It's like, it was so easy to
Yeah.
become your roommate and all this stuff. And I'm like, did you just like copy and paste? Is that what you did? Does that?
Yeah. So it's like on the one
know?
hand, this is it's a remake of the second movie in the same way that Star Wars Episode 8 is a remake of Star Wars Episode 5.
Sort of,
But
yeah.
there isn't enough meta commentary talking about that for this to be a Scream movie versus this being just a slasher movie, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I worry. I worry that's why I'm in my intro. I'm like, producers, jump the shark. Start getting absurd and ridiculous, and then I'll still be on board because you'll be commenting on what inevitably happens to a film series. It starts getting very crazy and absurd. So my question would be this. Would Wes Craven, the director of the first 4, would he like this movie, or would he go, you guys are kind of killing the original concept of these movies. You're kind of getting lax on what these movies are meant to represent. So let me just throw out some absurd examples of what I'm talking about, because again, if they would have taken all of the because again, you have a literal Ghostface killer shrine, right? And you're referencing the hell out of all the previous movies. That is fan service, and that is nostalgia, which is great if the core theme of the meta commentary would have been about nostalgia. And because you got 80s nostalgia, you got 90s nostalgia. This movie should have
We
been
talked about
the
the 8. Yeah, we talked about the
reflected
8
those
movie,
things.
or
You know
we
what I
talked
mean?
about Jason Takes Manhattan. It's like it was kind of nostalgia in that regards because they're like, oh well, remember that movie? Like this is kind of a riff on that a little bit.
Because they're in New
A
York.
little bit.
Is that enough? Like, yeah.
Well, yeah,
like,
but it's like
Like
it's
a lot
taking
of
New
movies
York.
happen in New York.
Yeah,
so-
no, but with that franchise, Friday the 13th usually took place either on camp or like it usually took place on the lake. This was like I think it was the first one that like let's take it away from the lake. Let's go to New York City, like the biggest city in the world, whatever. And that's kind of what they did in this movie a little bit, where it's like let's take
All I
Ghostface,
need
let's
to
take him
hear,
to New York.
Nico, I didn't even read the rest. Nico says Charlie is right. I don't even need to read the rest of his. No, I'm kidding. But
He's
then-
murder positive, guys. Come on.
what he's saying is that, I'll read the whole thing. The self-aware meta commentary and subversion of genre tropes are what makes Scream what it is. Motives have never been important. In fact, it's been said as much multiple times. The whole thing is, we're there not just for a murder fest. We're not just there to watch a slasher. We're there to watch a slasher that is commenting on the horror tropes of the time. And if you're not doing that, then again, cynically, I'm assuming that the producers are just trying to extend the franchise without really caring about the franchise. And that's why I say, what would Wes Craven think about this movie? He might be like, oh yeah, the horror stuff was good, but you didn't
not
do any
Scream enough.
Scream stuff. Yeah, you didn't talk about stuff. So here you go. Here's like I put 30 seconds into thinking about how they could jump the shark. Okay, going absurd, right? Okay, so if the series is going to do what it does best and showcase the inevitable escalation of a franchise, just like they did in 5, right? They showed glimpses of, I love that stuff about 5, where it's like Ghostface Killer has a new weapon, and it's like a fucking flamethrower, and like it's stupid. It's like, and part 5 has time travel, and it's absurd and terrible, and that's what's great. Showcasing the inevitable escalation of a franchise, they're going to have to take things to a higher level of absurdity than what we got here in number 6. If they wish to continue being brilliant, they're gonna have to jump the shark and then be aware that they're jumping the shark. So okay, so imagine this, right? Imagine those 9 masks, right? Like the 9, the Lord of the Rings, the 9. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh my
a
God.
ghost face cult arises that figures out how to resurrect the literal ghosts of each of the 9 Ghostface killers. And they unleash these spirits upon all of New York City. Sam and company have to reverse the process by trapping each soul inside of their respective mask by offering a blood sacrifice.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
Scream Busters.
that's crazy. That's stupid. But that would reflect what I'm saying, like the absurdity of escalating this franchise to where it's like they're jumping the shark, but they have to if they're going to.
I got a better
by
one.
it.
I got a better one.
Go ahead. Add to this absurdity, please.
I will. This one's less absurd because it's already fitting in with what we know about from 5 and 6. Because I do feel like one of my biggest gripes about 5 was this Billy Loomis ghost. It was like, we got to bring this actor back so we can just have another person to come back. And yet he like looks old as shit every time you look at him. You're like, yeah, you've aged, buddy. Like it's time to move on. Come on. So they bring Billy Loomis back, right? Well, like, do something with that. For God's sakes, do something other than like, I'm haunted by my father. What if?
Hey, honey, you should grab that knife. Like, thanks, Dad.
Okay. Yeah. What if instead this movie was, I keep falling asleep. I'm at someplace at night and I black out. I don't know what happens. And then I wake up and I'm someplace else. Right. And she's having all these blackouts and she doesn't understand why. Then at the end of the movie, we find out she's actually the killer. She doesn't realize she's the killer because people who have like, it's not personality disorder. There's another name for it, but it's the same thing. They will black out, at least supposedly. They will black out. They don't know where they're at. And then they're like, wait, what the heck just happened? And they find out later, like, oh, I murdered somebody. What if that was the story? And actually, they go crazy with it. And they make it like Billy Loomis like possesses her. And like he's doing the killing again, and he's trying to kill Gail and trying to kill all these characters.
Stupid idea.
That would have been better.
What I mean. That would be great. That is so
because
dumb.
In this movie,
that would be great.
This movie, it's like at the end of the movie, at the third act, it's like this is her superpower, where it's like her dad's like, all right, grab that knife now, like stab, like okay, did we
honey,
turn into a super? Knife. Yeah, it's like I saw the knife, it's over there, go grab it. Yeah. You're like, exactly. Really? Let's kill these motherfuckers. Let's stab them.
Yeah, like that whole concept nothing really ever comes of this weird thing she has where she can talk to the ghost of her dad, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
imagine
that is a weird thing that doesn't go
escalating things to absurdity. A literal ghost-based cult figures out how to resurrect the spirits of all the killers and then unleashes the so then on top of that, hang on on top of that,
one more?
if you did that, if they could do that, they could also bring back Randy as a ghost to return to give us our familiar meta commentary on how the story is going to end and how ridiculous everything, like that would be great. And then
this would be called Scream.
Scream Infinity.
No, that's not what I was going to call it. Scream 7. I was going to call it Scream 7, the man with the golden mask.
Yes, yeah. Just go stupid nuts. So another stupid idea was, how about this? They get sucked into in Scream 6.
Why is Nan's mom? Why is Nan's mom?
Nan's what's up, Mama Nance?
Oh my God.
Okay, so how about this? How about another stupid idea? They get sucked into the first Stab movie. Okay. So they're all just like Jumanji, right? So they're all suddenly trapped into repeating the same events of their beloved first movie, but nobody in that movie believes them, or and then all of their attempts to stop the same events from happening. That's what I'm saying. It should go too crazy. It should go so stupid and nuts and jump the shit out of the shark.
Let me pitch you one. Let me pitch you one that's a little bit. Let me pitch you one that's a little bit like, again, I'm gonna like turn you down just a little bit. Like you're going to 11. I'm like, let's just go to like 6 or 7.
Let's go to 12.
You want to go to 12. I'm like, look, hold on. We'll get there. Just not yet.
Okay.
But here was the other thing. This was okay, and this is also a comment that I had about the movie, and it kind of annoyed me, but then I realized what they were doing, and I was like, okay, whatever. So at one moment in this movie, you see the broken TV in the shrine, and it's from the first movie that kills Matthew Leonard. And I think Kirby says something to Mindy, and they're like, you know, some people say he's not actually dead. They don't think Stu's actually dead. And I sat up in my seat and I'm like, oh my God, what if Matthew Leonard shows up at the end of this fucking movie and he's the killer this whole fucking time, and he's brought these people to like come and like he has all the shrine and he's been working behind the shadows even before, you know, 3 and all this stuff. And then they didn't do that. And I was like, oh fuck. But that would have been better with this, like Matthew Leonard actually had lived through all of these events, and then like, you know, somehow some convoluted reason why he had lived, and then like
would have
he has been
what I've been saying.
He's been
about
online,
nostalgia.
Yes,
the main thing.
And then
should have
he
been
finds
fan
all
service
these
and
fans.
nostalgia.
He takes the Richie thing from the last movie up to 11, where he's like, he finds all these other people that were like Stab fans and they love Stab, and he gets them on board. Like they're a bunch of weird incels that are like, oh yeah, I fucking love Stab movies and hate women. Let me kill more. You know, like I don't know that, and like that would have been the next movie. That would have been cool.
Are the Stab
no,
movies like Scream in that they're meta?
Somebody when I was making the thumbnail,
hold on. Nance had a question. Well, Nance, let me follow
up what you were saying, and then we'll jump to Nance. As I'm making the thumbnail, there was an article that said a fan theory is based off the trailer of 6 was that a Ghostface fan club is behind the killings. And I was like, that automatically that sounds like what I'm talking about, like a bigger escalation. And what you were just saying, like fans of Stu kind of teaming up to, because did you guys ever see the show The Following with Kevin Bacon?
I didn't see the show. See the show.
So okay, so the show is about, so it's Kevin Bacon's a cop, and it's nuts, right? And it's called The Following because it's about a cult, and I can't remember the specifics of the cult, but everybody is a member of the cult. Like it's like this, where everybody's a suspect. You can't trust anybody. And that's the escalation I'm talking about, where suddenly there is a Ghostface killer cult that is behind this whole thing. And so just random people on the street are just pulling out knives and stabbing them. Like just like such an escalation that is.
And she's already having to deal with heckling.
Oh, yeah, because then it could be like, because these movies have always done the whodunit thing. Like everyone's a suspect, but you're like, no, everyone's a suspect. We're in the big, you know how it would work better because you're in New York City. You're in the biggest city, like the biggest city in the United States, and you're like everybody, like someone like that could have been a line. Like they're like everyone's a suspect. You're like no, Mindy's like no, everybody's a suspect. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Basically, what Batman? Basically, you're telling me what the Batman was, which I bet you they saw the Batman. They're like, we can't do that. They did that in the Batman with the Riddler. Like everyone just came out of the woodwork and was like, I'm gonna put my Riddler costume on, and I'm the Riddler. But no, that would have been cool if it was that, and like everybody was Ghostface.
Just go to an absurd level, and then that would justify why is there this whole theater with all of these all this memorabilia and the 9 costumes all lined up. Like that is some cult stuff, but instead they attributed it to Richie. So somehow Richie got a hold of all this stuff as opposed to a cult got a hold of all of this stuff.
They had the pieces there.
So awesome. You know what
I
mean?
Had the pieces there with all of the other kids.
Got
the two
all
guys.
Of that stuff. And they're like,
but they had the pieces there.
Oh, because the police like money, so you just pay the cops and you get stuff. Yeah, how does one? And I'm not saying I need total logic. But what I'm saying is the logic would have been better if a whole bunch of people had come together to assemble that versus just Richie assembled all that. That's stupid.
But then, but you had the piece. You had the pieces there. You had the pieces there with the college kids in the beginning of the movie, where they're like, "Oh yeah, we got to finish Richie's movie," and like that could have been more of a thread in the rest of the film.
Bunch of 4chaners.
Yeah,
exactly. Like
a bunch of rank subscribers.
So okay. So anybody watching, if you haven't seen the
Nico,
following,
murder positive, right?
if you start watching the following,
Just kidding.
you'd be like, oh, I get what Charlie's saying. It's like literally everybody is a member of this cult, and that makes it so much more dangerous, and that would escalate the franchise to this absurd level that it needs now. But instead, they're just trying to do more of the same, and it's Scream, baby. This is Scream. Don't do more of the same. You have to be escalating and then being self-aware of your escalation. But
Or
anyway,
at least do more of this. Like in this one, at least there should have been more of the Scream formula.
Yeah,
but we don't get enough.
No,
you guys.
We want more. We want an adequate amount.
Charlie disappeared.
Oh my gosh.
Nance. One thing I did like about this. Let me talk about some positives real quick.
You know what I didn't like is they never. It's just like any
go ahead.
Scary movie or Bond 2. It's just like just finish them off. They knock them down several times. Just like
you could have offed them or take their mask off, then you know who they are, like Scooby-Doo shit. You know, like they don't ever do that.
Hits him with a big heavy object. Oh, just keep hitting him now that he's on the ground.
I thought the same
Instead
thing.
of running out of, they do that like 4 or 5 times in this movie, and it's just like
something
they should comment on, like maybe make a comment on it.
Yeah.
Like, and then it'd be okay.
Maybe next time we actually like take his mask off or beat him, and then we'd know or something, you know. Something I did like though, and I thought this
here or not. What is that?
Charlie, I think, is dealing with something internet related.
Okay.
He's having glitches now. Okay, something I did think worked in this movie that I actually did like was the fact that Sam and Tara are dealing with the events from the previous film, but they're dealing with them differently. So like, Sam's like super concerned about everything, while Tara's just like, I'm just gonna get drunk and high and sleep with whoever I want because I just
gonna
don't
keep
care,
living my life.
know, like, and I like that line where she says something like, I'm not gonna let 3 weird days of my life rule the rest of my life or something like that, which is weird because it's not weird. It's just the movie kind of says like, no, you are, because that's what happened to Sidney Prescott and Gale Weathers and every other character that ended up in these movies, is that they're going to have to deal with that for the rest of their life. You don't get to walk away from it.
I think she made a good point. Like, Sam's living in the past and she's trying to live for now and in the future, but then immediately like Sam's right, of course, and they have to deal with Ghostface again. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so Nico says, pull that one up real quick. So Nico says, Nico says, I was supposed to do, this was from Matthew Leonard, said that I was supposed to do, hold on. Here we go. I was supposed to do Scream 3. Leonard said in 2022, I got paid for 3. Not really well, but I ended up getting paid for something I didn't do because the idea was that I'd be running high school killers, ... So yeah, like basically that idea that he's coming back at some point, either in the next movie or something.
Well, I also, again, I don't research this stuff, but when I'm making the thumbnail or whatever, I might catch things. And apparently he said, I'm definitely not coming back for 6, but I could be lying. So that's either him just doing a joke, or it's like he might come back. And I that's what I mean. I welcome stuff like that. If Mindy is saying, usually in the 7th installment, a bad guy from the like Star Wars, right? Like the Emperor coming back in the final movie. It's like
somehow
around this time
came back.
Yeah. Like usually around this time, a bad guy from the original comes back in an absurd way, and that's what I mean. Overall, there just wasn't enough Scream meta commentary in this movie to where I was like, this isn't a Scream movie so much as it's a generic slasher, which is to say, it's meh. I don't like, no, there were some really good kill scenes. Okay, sure. But like, what the fuck do I care when the whole point of the first movie was that this, like, okay. Take this. Take Scream, the first movie, take Scream, and take out all the self-awareness and the movie references and all that.
Somehow Charlie came back.
It's just a shitty remake of Halloween. The point of the movies is to be a celebration of horror movies and movies in general. If you take that out, it's just a mediocre slasher. And so that's what we got this time, was just a mediocre slasher. And there was some escalation with, okay, now there's 3 killers, and we have like the whole collection of all the memorabilia and all that. But again, like, but they didn't take it to a degree that I was like, oh, this is a Scream movie. They kept it at a degree where I was like, this is just a mediocre slasher
It's
movie.
a remake of 2. It's just
pretending to be a
let's
Scream movie.
It's like, let's do 2
Yeah.
again, but then like let's amp 2 up, because 2 again was like his mom comes back and starts killing him, and so then it's like, okay, well, we're basically doing the same thing, but it's his dad and his sister
Dad
and his
came
brother.
back, and I get
And,
that.
like-
I get that. I
Like,
get that.
okay.
I as I'm watching it, I'm like, that's what we're looking at, is like, this is a remake of 2, but at the same time, did they really take it to the degree that it should have been? They're kind of
Huevos
lazy
rants.
with it.
Huevos Rant says, didn't get meta. It was good kills. I would like to put quotes around good kills, because that was, so your problem is the meta
Yeah,
part.
nobody died.
My problem is, if you're gonna have these really good scenes, I know there are people that do die in this movie. Don't get me wrong. There are people that die. They're just not the main characters, the ones that we follow and care about, with the exception of maybe one, which is Mindy's girlfriend, who gets off pretty quickly. But she, like, you're like questioning, like, is she going to survive? Is she not going to survive? This movie just, like, there's certain characters that they stab repeatedly. And, you know, like, they get that cheerleader power for some reason, and they're just walking around and be like, oh, I survived. And like, and then there was with Gail's killing, which we didn't talk about that much, but Gail's killing was like, that one felt like, because if you watch it, it's all in dialogue. It's not really.
I thought she died.
It felt
I legitimately thought she did die, and I was like, that's great. And then McCurdy's like, no, dude, she didn't die. And I was like,
she did not die.
Oh.
It felt like the producers.
He told me that. I was like, this. I was like, fuck this. She didn't die. Fuck this movie. This is terrible. You know, had she died, I would like this movie more. But
yeah,
she should have died.
No, it felt like producers got cold feet, and the producers were like, "Oh, we can't kill Courtney Cox off because she's been in all of these movies. We can't do it. We can't do it." And then they were like, "Okay, we can't do it." And so then they're like, "Okay, well, we'll write a piece of dialogue in there saying she's still breathing." Because that's what they say. They said, oh, we got there in time. She's still breathing. And then at the end, they're like, oh, well, we could go kill Gail and that other Mindy at the hospital, which doesn't make any sense because the other guy is the only one who's with Mindy. So, like, why wouldn't he just try to kill her? Like, it's silly. No. It doesn't make sense. But so that all happens. And then, but then nobody died. No one of meaning dies in this movie. Like, Gail would have been the obvious choice.
It would have been respecting her to kill her. It would have been a celebration. But instead, just like Dewey, anybody who thinks that Dewey dying is a disservice, I don't think you understand these movies if you think that's a disservice. I think it's because, again, it's not just unceremoniously just throwing them into an elevator shaft. No. It is again, the killer literally says it's an honor, right? It's an honor to kill you, Dewey. And that is, in essence, honoring him by killing him. Now he's gone, and
they just didn't have the balls to kill Cox.
Well, it's not even that. Exactly. It just makes the movie better. It makes the movie gives the movie weight. And that, like, you're talking about meta. Forget meta for just a second. You forget meta just for a second. That's my problem with this movie, is that a kill gives a movie weight. It's the same problem that people have with comic books, not comic book movies, but comic book characters. Marvel, DC, doesn't matter. If you don't kill your character off and that character stays dead, it doesn't matter if a character dies or not. They can always come back. And that's the problem with this movie, is it, like, they don't give a stab or a kill scene by actually killing those people off. Like, I get it. Kirby comes back from 4 because of some weird thing that maybe it was an edit. Maybe they just didn't spend enough time with it. Whatever. They're like, okay, we can bring her back. So we have a character from 4 to bring back. Whatever. That's fine. But, like, don't make that a common occurrence for this movie, where you create these core 4 characters and you want to have your cake and eat it too, and have, we're gonna have our new Cindy Prescott and our new Gail Weathers and our new Randy and our new Dewey, and, like, we're gonna make this our new group for this movie without kill somebody, for God's sakes. Like, just if you're gonna go through all the rigmarole of having this really great subway scene or whatever, like, or having this emotional scene where
Have
Jenna
a
Ortega's
payoff.
characters, like, she's like up, like, physically, like, they were gonna have a relationship, and you were feeling for her and Chad. You're like, oh, they're gonna get together, and then Chad gets brutally murdered, and you're like, oh my god, like,
In
and
front
that
of
would have
her,
worked for,
Yeah.
and that would
And
have
then it
worked
would
for her
be,
character. Hold on, Charlie,
see
that
how
would have
the
worked
Ortega
for her
character deals
character.
with that, because she's,
Yeah.
trying to move
But like
forward.
Nans and I were talking about, like, one of the things that I liked about the movie, at least I liked the
Hera.
scene, but I feel like the payoff got screwed over, was early in the movie, you find out Sam and Tara are not dealing with the events of 5 the same way. Sam is super cautious, very worried, very like she's freaking out like she should, kind of how Sydney did in the second movie. Tara, on the other hand, is living free and dying hard, where she's just like, I'm gonna go drink and have sex with whoever I want and get high, and I just don't give a shit. And
all the
her
all the
sister's
things
like,
that
and she
that
knows,
Randy would say, don't do those things
yeah,
because
but
then you
Tara,
get killed.
but
You know?
Sarah, okay, but Tara tells Sarah, she says, I'm not gonna let whatever it was, I'm not gonna let 3 days of my life rule the rest of my life, or something like
Yeah.
that. And she and Sarah could have easily said, you're wrong, you're dead wrong, like, you need to, because all we know is that those 3 other legacy characters, that's what they dealt with every time we do these movies. It's been in their life for the entire time. And so when we get to the moment where she and Chad are like, they're together, they're gonna be together, and then Chad gets brutally murdered, that's the wake up moment for her to be like, oh shit, I'm stuck with this for the rest of my life. That gets completely washed out when then it's like, oh, Chad, you lived. Okay, we're all good. We're all good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, like,
and
that,
nobody
that pissed me
learned
off.
anything. Yeah.
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 Made me
And
mad. I was
everything
like,
turned out
that's
great.
what
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
what killed
And it
me.
was
for that.
was one
That
after
thing
the
that killed
other.
me.
It was just like, and this person lived, and this person
Yeah.
lived, and it was so many at one time that you're like, God damn, they've lost sight of how these
They
movies
should have had some balls.
should
Yeah,
work.
like who said it? They said someone should have balls. The producers didn't have. Someone said that in our chat. Who said that? Was that Nico?
Yeah,
Nico said
Nico.
that they didn't have
Yeah.
balls. They're
Well,
right.
as
This movie
Huevo said,
didn't have
Huevo
any
said
balls.
they said core 4 too much, and
They know huevos.
and I agree. Huevos, I agree with you so far as they kept saying core 4, and the joke should have been that by the end they're the key 3 or something, right? Like, okay, we're not the core 4. Like, okay, one of the core 4 is dead, so now we're the key 3, and that would have been a payoff to saying core 4 over and over and over. But instead, there was no payoff. It was just the core 4 is still the core 4, and that's where you go. That's what I mean. That would Wes Craven watch this movie and like it? He might be like, "Hey, this is kind of the sellout movie of this franchise.
It is
Where just this is just a shameless money grab with because okay. What were we supposed to get out of this movie?
I don't know. I'm so confused.
Dead fucking silence. Nothing. As opposed to the first movie is commentary on movies like Halloween. The second movie is about sequels. The third movie is about a sequel versus a
Trilogies.
trilogy, right? 4 is about remakes. 5 is about requels, right? What is this movie? Other
That's
than
why it's like
just a
film
shameless
franchise.
cash grab that just
Yeah.
undermines the series. What the fuck were we supposed to get from this? If it would have been about nostalgia and fan service, I would love it. But instead, it's just this is just a cash grab where it's like whoever's producing these now, maybe they don't give a goddamn about the previous movies. And that's why I bring up Wes Craven. Wes Craven in his grave is probably like, fuck this movie. And if they keep doing this, they're ruining what I did in the past. Right? They need Randy's ghost to come back and be like, you're shitting on the old Scream movies. Like that's what we need. So
Nico had one point. He said, you've never seen me. He said, Kit Ridge, you never seen me. I'm very upset. What did you think of Henry Surzin? Is that how you say it? It's like check name, right? Zerny. He was okay. But what's funny is I think he plays the same kind of character he played in She-Hulk. But it was like he was the red herring that they didn't really give enough time to be the red herring in the movie. He was
the psychiatrist.
No. Oh, I'm thinking. Oh, my bad. I thought he was talking about the.
Yeah, it's the psychologist.
Yeah, you're right. That is
I
something
got
else. 'Cause
stabbed through the face.
he's the guy who's in the first Mission Impossible. who
That's
tells
what he
Tom
means by
Cruise-
Kittredge, and yeah, like that's what he means by
Yeah, yeah,
Kittredge. You've never
yeah,
seen me
yeah.
upset. Like that's, but like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Nico, he was wasted. He just there wasn't anything to him.
No.
He was just
Like-
he was kind of like Henry, or was it Henry Winkler in the first movie? He was just like he's like, oh yeah, we got Henry Winkler. Then he gets stabbed, and it's like the Fonz gets stabbed. All right, next movie.
Yeah, but one guy's the Fonz, like yeah, but
All right,
Sorry,
Char,
I thought we
where
were
are you
talking about-
placing it on the list.
I know where I'm placing it on the list, or at least I thought I did, but I want to hear Charlie's now because Mans, you and I are very close in thinking. But
yeah,
think it's above
I'm
Magic
gonna give
Mike.
you guys a Scott level range, right? Where
Scott level range.
Somewhere between 2 and 8.
That's a Scott level range, yeah. I think my highest would be 3, and my lowest would be
Above
5.
Megan?
That's
Yeah.
the question. The question is, does
Okay.
this beat Megan or not?
No, I
Or-
don't think
I
it
don't
beats
think it beats
Megan.
Megan
and I
or
don't think it
Missing.
beats. I don't
Okay.
think Charlie. I came in here and I'm like, it's not being Missing. I think Missing's a much more. It's a
And
much
it's-
more solid
there-
movie.
And
it has better.
And I
comparison
won't
draw
fight
between
you.
the
I
two.
will not
And it
fight
has
you on
better.
that.
Here's the thing. Missing has better twists and turns. It's just an overall
It
better
has better
story.
robot fight at
it
the
does-
end.
It has better robot fight. Well, I'm not even
Yep.
talking about Megan. I don't forget
Got a
about Megan.
robot fight.
But Missing is always Missing as this list. Missing has kind of been my personal favorite of these movies. I still think it's a better twist and turn movie. I felt more engaged with that movie. I was on the edge of my seat the whole goddamn time. Things fucking mattered. Like I didn't, like people didn't just get stabbed, and things actually just mattered in that movie. It's not better than Missing. The one that here's where I would put it currently, but you tell me otherwise. Currently, it's right above Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's where I would put it because
Yeah.
while we have all
It's
this
a
shit,
comfy spot.
all this bad shit that we're talking about, I'm like, okay, it's definitely better than Cocaine Bear. It definitely had my attention more than Plane. Knock at the Cabin, I could also see it right above that movie. Magic Mike, I'm kind of on the fence of where if it's like there. Ant-Man and the Wasp, on the other hand, it's like this big action blockbuster movie that's a part of the big franchise, but it's also got it's weak in very many ways. And it also has story points that don't really add up where they should have added up. And that's where I'm like, it may have done it a little bit better than Ant-Man and the Wasp,
I think so.
but I don't know. I don't know if that's the right spot. Like I just think
it's
5 or below.
Scream
it's
6
okay.
is a decent movie. It's just not Scream enough.
It's between for me.
and that's
It's
the only
between.
complaint, really.
It's either
Yeah.
5 or it's I guess it would be right above
think
Plane. So
5.
it's right above Plane or right above Ant-Man and the Wasp, somewhere in that range. That's where I'm at.
My assumption, McCurdy, was
think
that you
we're
were going to come
all
in at
right
5,
around
just
5
below
then.
Missing. And my again, there's the weighing it as a Scream movie, and then there's the weighing it as a movie, right? Because and we totally we passed on recommendations, and I think we did that last week too. We just haven't been talking about recommendations because recommendations are difficult. Where can you imagine recommending this movie to somebody who's never seen a Scream movie?
You can't.
You know what I mean?
You have to see. I went into this one not seeing 5, and I felt lost for a good chunk of the movie, even knowing who the killer was in the previous movie. And I was like, "Oh, wait, what? Who are these characters?" And I felt like I missed something. And then when I went and saw 5, I was like, "Okay,
if you're gonna
sense."
if you're gonna recommend it, you have to, the recommendations are almost moot because you're like, well, are you a Scream fan or not? Well, if you're
you
not
like,
a Scream fan, why would you go see it? You'd be
I
confused
would
as
still be
hell the
pissed
whole
off.
time.
I would still be pissed off if I had seen all the Scream movies because of the whole people not getting killed, things not happening.
But imagine if you
That
hadn't
pissed
seen
me
any
off.
of them, you'd be fucking confused. You'd be as confused as going to see Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, without having seen any Marvel movies. And that's what's so weird about the era we live in is that there's required
Everything's a
reading. So
sequel.
So speaking of required reading, what I personally love about the Scream movies is that it's as if every character in the story has gone through the required reading. They're all up to speed on every horror movie that's ever been made, and all of them are capable of commenting on it. Now you have you have the Mindys and the Randys of the universe who are the experts, but then everybody else is always talking about them too, right? And that's what's so fun, is that it's like these characters in this story are kind of like me, I guess, right? Where they're aware of all these things, and that's the fun part of it. But I just, so now we're weighing we're weighing a decent horror movie that's not a good Scream movie versus a Magic Mike movie that's the worst of the Magic Mikes, in my opinion, but for argument's sake, worst of the Magic Mikes versus a mediocre MCU movie versus an original Missing, an original movie, an original sci-fi movie in Megan versus the third installment of a 10 movie franchise in Creed versus Infinity Pool, which is self-sustaining and it's its own thing. So that's what's fun about this list. And I think that for me, I've been leaning towards like when I give the range of 3 to 5, I'm like, okay, at a certain point, if a movie is complete, then I think it beats Megan, because I think Megan and Missing are kind of incomplete. But at the same time, I agree with you guys, and I'm not going to fight hard so far as this may have brought it in like the horror stuff, but it just doesn't have any of the familiar Scream film commentary, and that weakens it. So I will not fight you if you want to put it at 5. I won't fucking fight you if you want to put it below that, but
I
it
just
is.
don't. Yeah, my thing is, I
complete.
think when I look at this list currently, I agree with you as far as 1 and 2 are like kind of they're one's a very complete movie. I think like these top 4 movies are its own like list as far as they're very complete movies. Third, Creed 3 is a sequel, but I think it still stands on its own with its own originalities as far as how it takes the Rocky story. Megan's an original story. I know you said the third act's kind of weak. Missing's the same way. We almost wanted to rank Megan and Missing at the same level because they're very close. And it's just maybe because Missing isn't a regular movie, but I think Missing's a little more creative. But that's my personal taste. So I feel like 1, 2, 3, and 4 are solid where they're at. I don't think they can move. Where I have trouble is you're asking me like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, the movie that has gotten shit on by everybody for being way too crazy and fantastical with this giant budget of a movie, versus Scream, which again, after all the reasons, that doesn't kill anybody, a slasher film that is just got its hands tied behind its back, and like everybody's got cheerleader powers, and it's dumb. And then you got Magic Mike Last Dance, which I kind of like. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp, for me, it's like it has just way more spectacle, and it's just a lot more fun to watch than Magic Mike Last Dance. But I think Magic Mike Last Dance has at least tries to have a better story than some of these other ones. So like that's where I'm struggling, is because I'm like, is it better than 5? Is it lower than 5? Is it like it's in that range? And it's like somewhere between Ant-Man and Knock in the Cabin, because I think it's definitely better than Plane.
We roughly know where we're at. Let's just take 5. Let's go back to this view. Let's hang out. And I got some other stuff. I don't know what it is, but okay. So things like does it involve
Baskin Robbins?
I wish. I love
Put that back up. Put that back up.
There it is. So okay. So let me ask you guys a question. What was the point of the opening?
Is to subvert expectations.
Sure. And I did appreciate the idea of
that opening would have made way more sense with your
professor.
idea of everyone is Ghostface.
Yeah, but I wonder if that was the original. Like, it could have been like that was the original opening. Like, that was the original opening to another script, and like that would have made more sense within that, because it's physically like having somebody who's an expert on these movies getting killed in the beginning of the movie, which is subverting the idea of the original films, where it was like, remember the very first movie, Drew Barrymore is like kind of doesn't really know these movies because the joke is she doesn't know that Jason is not the killer in the first Friday the 13th, which by this point, I think most people know that. But like the joke is like this woman who's on a date and it's dealing with the internet and dating, which they don't really utilize in this movie. They could have utilized it more. She goes out on she's supposed to go on a date. She goes down a dark alley, and the guy's like, you did the thing that you're not supposed to do in any horror movies, going down a dark alley.
You're a film professor, and yet you still walk down a dark alley. And you watch
the horror movies, yet we still killed you.
Yeah.
But
like,
then,
that's good. But and I love that. But what was the point? What was the point of that whole?
It was supposed to. I think the idea was it's supposed to set up the killer to be like, this is not who you think. It's like it's not the same tropes. We're going to try something different, and it was like subvert. Like, we're trying to subvert expectations. But I agree with you. I do like we were talking about this. I think this was meant for another movie that they were like, we're going to save the intro. We love the intro because I also think the intro is really awesome. But then as you watch the end of the movie, you're like, oh, that intro doesn't quite work because usually movies. At least in my opinion, movies kind of work almost like equations in a way. Like you have to have certain things set up for the third act to work or to pay off. Yep. You're not supposed to understand exactly what's going to happen, but it's like, oh, I see what you were trying to foreshadow this thing for later on. And if you don't do that, then it doesn't always like you need those little bits to really hook you into the movie. And that was something that was almost like it was for something else.
Yeah. Again, cynically extending this franchise beyond what it should be. Like, again, Wes Craven may be like, you guys made a fifth, and then he'd watch 5 and he'd be like, oh, okay, 5 is good. I like 5. 5 continues on in the spirit of the 4 movies I made previously.
Yeah.
But then maybe he'd watch 6 and be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing? 5 was good, and now we're done, you know? Unless 6 is going to be absurd and jump the shark and be nuts. So, like, I love the opening line of, where Jason is like, Jason Cuddy, which is a funny name, is like, we need to finish the movie. And Ghostface says, who gives a fuck about movies? Which is great. Like, that's very Scream-like. But then in the end, what did this movie have to say about movies? What was there?
Charlie, I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
As opposed to every other installment has a lot to say about movies. But this one, what the fuck did this have to say about movies?
I wish this movie had said something about television taking the place of movies. Like, that's something that they could have tapped into. They never did that. That's something that's like people are talking about. And it could have been tapped in. It's not tapped in. But Charlie, let me ask you this question though. What was good about this movie? Because again, our ranking is in like this middle section, but it's very specific. I'm not scotting you and being like, it's somewhere in the middle. I'm saying like, I know it's this. It's right here. What makes it like we've talked about all the bad stuff about this movie. What at least could you say is good about this movie that you're like, okay, they do this really well?
I think I've kind of already said how it is a overall well, let me put it this way. These movies are funny. And including this one, I laugh. Like even so far as Mindy's girlfriend falling off the ladder and like banging her head on a.
It was a scene I hated, but okay.
But I still laughed. I laugh at because the whole crux of the series is being funny, but they never like. Let me bring up Cocaine Bear. Cocaine Bear, I said over and over, is not funny because it's trying so hard to be funny, whereas the whole Scream series is really funny. But everything is delivered straight. Everything is very serious. Nobody ever looks at the camera and winks, right? Nobody ever does that because that would ruin it. Everything is delivered straight and seriously. And then things happen in it that are maybe so over the top that it is humorous. And they are meant to be humorous. They're meant to be funny to a certain degree. while also being terribly horrific. So this continued that, right, where it's very seriously portrayed, but there are times that again, who gives a fuck about movies is inherently funny, but it's not. Who gives a fuck about, like, Cocaine Bear would be like, who gives a fuck about movies? Like, it would try to be funny, and therefore it would kill the humor, right? So it still felt like a Scream movie, but it didn't have the overall meta commentary that makes it a Scream movie.
My favorite funny moment that I thought was like, I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be intentional or not, was when he's like, Gail's like, hold on, let me hang up, and then he goes, what?
Yeah.
When she's she's on the phone and he goes, what?
They did that in the fifth one where
they did.
It says to Sydney, he's like, you broke the first rule. You should never answer the phone. And she's like, yeah, anyway, I gotta go. And he's like, no, wait. And like, like they do all these humorous things, but they never look at the camera and wink. They're all delivered very seriously. And that is why they're so good, because all these characters know that they're caught up in a horror movie and they're constantly talking about how they're stuck in a horror movie, but they never look at each other and just go, they just, like, there's never a moment where it's cut and then they zoom out and they're all on a movie set. They're all very serious in how they approach it. And that's why they work.
I was going to ask you this question. Maybe Nans, I'll ask you this question too. And how do I form this? Basically, so the weird thing is this movie comes out as the series went on, it was 96 was the first one, 97 was the second one. 3 years, we got in 2000, we got Scream 3. That same year, it was 2000 or 2001, we got Scary Movie, which is so meta in the fact that was the name of the original Scream, but also it's like it was specifically making fun of Scream. And there's a lot of jokes in that movie and a lot of things that are like, yeah, that's poking fun at that movie in particular. So much so now that I think when Scream 4 and 5 and 6 have come out, like, that movie came out in the middle of all of that. So then when I see 4, 5, and 6, I am reminded of the jokes from that movie. And then I'm seeing it in like for instance, when Gail is running from Ghostface in her apartment and she's like trying to get away from him and she's like chucking things in the way. All I can think about is him like running up the stairs and them Chris Pratt's ex-wife throwing shit at him, like moments like that. And I'm like, so do you think it's funny because of Scary Movie, or do you just think it's funny because it's funny? Dead silence.
It's not trying to be funny.
It's a good question.
Like it's not trying.
Yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be funny.
Okay. But there's something very goofy, to step on Nans for a second. There's something very like if you watch the first Scream, there is something wily about Ghostface, right? And the crux of Ghostface in general is that Ghostface is always somebody different, right? So the physicality is so, again, me. When you find out that Ghostface is actually like a 90-pound female, but that 90-pound female happened to murder like a jock, you're like, well, that's, but I don't care about those things because I care more about the story, and I don't, whatever. It could turn out to be like a 20-pound midget, and I'm like, oh, who cares, right? Like the story is, the point of the story is that you don't know who it is until they reveal themselves. So I ignore those things, but that doesn't, like, in the original, there are times where Ghostface is kind of like Wile E. Coyote, like he's just kind of goofy, like, how many times is he running at somebody and then they juke him and he just like flies out the window, and it's goofy. And then later on, he's more serious and like clearly they have, clearly they have an actor who plays Ghostface. It's not actually Julia Roberts' niece in the costume, killing somebody. It's like a 6-foot guy, and then later it's
Yeah.
revealed that it's Julia Roberts' niece. But I don't care about that stuff because that's not the point. The point is that it's always somebody different and unexpected and all that. And so I don't care so much about the specifics, but I care more about the crux of the franchise, which is meta commentary on the film industry as a whole. And this one didn't have that. And so I question this being a fucking Scream movie.
Sure.
Right? Just saying we're the sequel to the reboot isn't enough.
It's a light Scream.
Scream
Scream
Light.
Light.
So,
Scream Light.
but Charlie, do you think it's better than Ant-Man? That's where I'm struggling because a part of me wants to say, is it? Because I feel like Ant-Man at least had it was bad. Like it did the same. You know what's funny? Scream and Ant-Man did the same shit, right? Ant-Man could have had balls.
Everything. Okay, to your point, everything that
Ant-Man
made
did
Ant-Man
balls.
fun in the past is gone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Magic Mike. Everything that made Magic Mike fun is gone,
gone.
with the third one. Ant-Man. Everything that made Ant-Man fun with the third one is gone. Right?
Yeah.
Everything that made Scream fun is gone. So
whoa,
rank
wait.
them,
It's not gone.
A lot of it is gone.
Some of it.
It's still there.
Some of it's gone.
Some of it's gone.
What we were talking about was gone. Oh, the meta, because we were talking about the meta. All right, the meta stuff.
Yeah,
meta.
that's what I'm saying.
Not
But
enough.
you did say
Like-
the whole Ghostface being funny and stuff like that. Like that's still there. You know, we still have the weird over the top, like who was the killer all along? Oh, it was this. Like they didn't, they didn't. Really change.
Scream 5 had that scene where, remember where they sit down with Dewey and Dewey's like, hey, it's probably the love interest. It's probably Richie. And Richie's like, what? And like Richie's great. Like I really think Scream 5 is fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah.
But we don't have any scenes like that. This just was more a run-of-the-mill slasher movie, more so than a Scream movie. So comparing it, like that's why I said I could see it as high as 3 so far as its completeness as a film. It is complete. But then the more we talk about how it's just not a very good Scream movie and it's just a run-of-the-mill slasher movie, I'm like,
It's not even a good slasher movie.
Is it more complete than
still decent.
Ant-Man? Is it more complete?
My thing with what I was about to say was Ant-Man and Scream do the same thing as far as they definitely pull their punches when they should have punched. Ant-Man should have kept Scott and the Wasp stuck in the quantum realm, or they should have killed Scott Lang. Something. And they decided, nope, they're okay. We're going to go back to Earth. Everything's cool. Kang's in the other universe. We're great. And a lot of people were like, wait, what? Like, this movie should have done something serious. This is the third Ant-Man Wasp movie. You should have done something, had some balls.
Yeah.
They didn't. This movie doesn't have balls in killing anybody that doesn't matter at all. But like, will go out of its way to stab a character to a point where you're like, oh, that guy's dead, but he's not dead.
Yeah.
So like, that's where I'm like,
we're in the same
She says, hey, tell Sydney he never got me. And I like I said, I legitimately thought she died to the point where I was like, wait a second, that's stupid. Yeah. She's saying, tell Sid that he never got me. And I'm like, but bitch, you're dead. But apparently I was wrong. And that's stupid. Right. She should have fucking died. They did. Okay. So they and then they would do things like the reason why she got attacked in the first place, right, was because it was like, hey, randomly, no press. They're like, this Gale fucking Weathers. It's like, no press. And then 5 minutes later, they're like, oh God, because we allowed Gale to split up from us, now she's the target. Well, yeah, no shit. They kept doing these things where people would split up, because that's the thing, right? One of the rules is like everybody stay in groups. And then the whole crux of playing against that trope is finding reasons to split people up, right, in fun ways. But this didn't really have any fun ways. They were arbitrary ways of just like, hey, Gail, you're just not going to come with us. And Gail's like, why not? Like, well, because you're press. It's like, yeah, but then you're just begging to have her be the victim. And then the moment that they realize that she is the target, they're like, oh, no, we never should have split up from her.
I feel like
and that
they
kept
could
happening.
have.
People just
But
kept
they had a
splitting up
reason.
for no reason.
They had a reason. They had a reason for that. They just didn't play that card at that moment. That reason was like,
what was the reason?
she even said so early in the movie. They're like, you watch the end of the 5th one. She's like, I'm not going to write a book. We're no more books after this. I'm done doing that shit. Like, we're not doing that. Then this movie comes, and then they're like, you told us you weren't going to write a book, and you ended up writing a book about us, and we're pissed at you. And it's like,
yeah,
you could have played that card at least and been like, oh no, we're not going to. You fucked us the last time. You're not a part of this narrative anymore. You keep doing that shit.
Maybe they should have had.
They could have gone that way.
Maybe then right away they should have just been like, Gail, we're not going to associate with you because you did that. Yeah. Instead, it was cheerleader
I'm saying
chick.
That, yeah,
cheerleader was just like. Cheerleader randomly was just like, hey, by the way, for the next scene, you're not going to be here because we need you to be away from us because you're going to write a book. They should have disassociated entirely. We should have not seen Gail for 30 minutes in the movie. And then they realize she's a target. But instead, it's, okay, from this scene to the next scene, Gail, you're out. Why am I out? Well, because you're going to exploit this. Okay. 5 minutes later, they're rushing to her apartment because they know she's going to be killed. You know what I mean? That weakens it. That's like, as opposed to she's been gone for 30 minutes and then we panic. Oh God, that's Gail's apartment address. We got to go save her. That would have been stronger.
Put the list up. Put that list up again. Just put that list up again. Not
this one.
Yeah, that one. Sorry, Nico.
So, but in general, I think all the plot stuff was kind of more rushed and took a back seat to the sister drama, which I don't think the sister drama is all that interesting.
I like I told Nans,
I liked it, but
I like that dynamic.
It just went out the window as soon as Ghostface.
They did not pay it off as much, and I think the Billy Loomis stuff is just stuff that lingers. It doesn't really go anywhere other than now she has superpowers with Ghost Dad. I think maybe it's below Ant-Man and the Wasp because I came into thinking it's above Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's better than Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I want to know this, Nico. If Nico is still with us, I want to know what Nico has to say. Nico is a big fan of these movies.
All right.
I want to know. I want to know what he's thinking, how he weighs in on this. But regardless, they did briefly
ranking of the Scream movies. But yeah, let's see what he says about.
One
in this
I'm
list
glad
because he's seen most of these, right? Or all of them.
I like that.
Okay, wait. He's doing 1, 2, 5, 3, 6, 4. Right?
So you think this is better than 4? Because I liked the heel turn in 4 more than I like
4. I think 4 is. Honestly, I think they're all great. I think this is the weakest one. Because I think that I think that all of the other installments are all aware of what they are, and 4 understands that it's a remake, and it knows that it's literally saying we're remaking it. The niece of Sydney is saying, I'm remaking this where I'm the star because I want to be special. I want to be you, Sydney. And Sydney's like, nobody should want to be me. My whole life is a fucking horror movie. But she's like, no, I don't care about that. I just want the attention. In the age of Instagram and Facebook and likes and clicks and all that crap, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think that movie is
when it was relevant,
brilliant. Whereas this movie doesn't really have any brilliance
to go viral on TikTok, and just everyone wants to be murder positive.
That would have been a better story.
Everybody's a part of a cult. They're all
everyone goes woke. Murder positive.
Everyone gets on TikTok
they briefly touched on cancel culture, right? Briefly. They said at one point, it's not enough to just kill somebody. You have to assassinate their character. That is clearly them talking about cancel culture. But it was only in a line, and it's like, well, the whole movie so the whole thing, right, was that the 3 killers were trying to assassinate Sam's character, the lead, lead chick, the new Sydney. It was like, we're gonna blame this all on her. We've started all these rumors, right? Where we're gonna destroy her character. It's not enough to just murder her. You have to make her look like she was the killer all along. And I like that. That's good. That is commenting on the era we're in now, which is the era of cancel culture, where somebody says one wrong thing and they're done for, right? We destroy their whole career. You can't just kill them. You have to make it look like they're a terrible person, and then you kind of metaphorically kill them. So I appreciate that, but that was just in one line. You know what I mean? Like that's like the whole fucking movie should have been about that. And you can kind of argue that it was. They had the video of, it was like, we spread all these rumors about her, and then we had this video where it makes her look bad, and my whole thing would be like, that is what cancel culture is dressing somebody up. Wait, what? SB, wait. What does that even mean? Charles called me a bitch in 2007. What does that mean?
He thinks we need to cancel you because
he's
apparently
canceling.
SB is somebody from your past. Oh my God, SB is someone from our past. And
he's our TV professor from high school. Is that what he's saying?
Oh no!
Is this
what if
SB?
that is our what if
SB,
that is
are you our
SB from our high school?
Oh my God!
It's the perfect episode to reveal this.
Holy shit!
That'd be hilarious.
Insane.
That would be awesome. Anyway,
oh my God, that would be so amazing.
Did you call him a bitch?
But I don't recall ever calling Mr. SB.
You called him a bitch.
I was a good boy back then.
My God, we're gonna lose subscribers over this. Thanks a lot, Chloe.
Anyway, but they briefly touched on cancel culture.
Damn.
And he's
just a dude from LA.
That's what there wasn't any kind of like specific sticking point like all the other movies had. It just had these kind of vague things. It had the symptoms of being written by several people. I don't know if it did or not, but it had the symptoms of kind of being about this, and then it's about that, and it's about that,
it felt more like knowing who the writers were. This one just felt like they had and knowing that what I've known about like Neve Campbell was supposed to come back, and then she's like, I'm not going to. And they had a script, they had a draft, they had an idea what this movie was going to be, and it may have involved her a lot more. I think and look, the release dates of these movies are really close. It's a year apart from each other. I didn't realize Scream 5 was
22 to 23. Yeah,
the last movie came out last year. Now. I don't know if I could be wrong, Nico. You could probably weigh in on this. I don't know if 5 came out when it did and it was supposed to come out sooner, and then there was like some more gappage between that because of COVID. I don't know if that was the case, but to know that these movies came out really close to each other makes me wonder if there was another script that involved a Ghostface cult and that they wanted to do that whole storyline. That was kind of what we got teased in the beginning of this movie, and then they couldn't do it for one reason or another. Somebody couldn't come back or whatever, and they couldn't do it. So then they had to change gears, and they had to quickly write something up, and it ended up being this movie. And they had some good scenes and some great ideas, which sounds to me like that's somebody who's like, oh, wouldn't this be a cool scene if they go to a bodega? Wouldn't this be a cool scene if they're in the subway? And then they just piecemealed all these scenes together, and then they had to like figure out what the movie was going to be from there. And then we just ended up with this sort of half-baked product, and like that's why we got the movie we got, versus like some better script idea that they had that they couldn't run with. So I do wonder if like that's what happened, and that's why we got this movie.
I just wish we had Ghostface Cult.
I'm going on a tangent. Going on the tangent.
Escalated.
So wait, to wrap things up, hold on. Just to start, like it's target on this thing. Do you think it's better? Like I'm trying to wonder, is it better than Knock at the Cabin? And I think it is. I want to say it is.
Everything is.
Magic Mike. Is it better than Magic Mike? You know what? I think it's better than Magic Mike because Magic Mike, we did say it's more of a concert movie, and it really just kind of leans on that a little too much. So I could say
will save the world.
But
if
it's
only
more. It's
people
not that.
danced, it would be,
It's not
if
that. It's
everybody
just
on
like,
the planet could get a lap dance, it would save the world. Yeah,
Charlie. It's like
eh.
it's like the thing we talked about with that movie was like it could have been a sister act with male strippers, and it decided not to be that movie, and like that would have been a little
Yeah.
more coherent movie, I guess. And we got kind of
Yeah.
more of a very vague movie. I don't think this movie's as vague. If we're just looking at,
Mm.
because skip the it's a Scream movie.
I think
thing, right?
I
Like,
think it's above the Magic Mike threschhold.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's about Magic
I
Mike.
would
So we
rather
are
rewatch this than
so we really
The
are an
Goodman version.
Ant-Man and the Wasp versus this movie. I don't know if I want to like Ant-Man and the Wasp. I had fun watching the movie and I didn't get as pissed off as I did with this movie because so many people lived. But also Ant-Man and the
Yeah.
Wasp had like the moments where I was like, "Oh, you should have had balls and killed people." So I'm like, that's where I'm torn. This movie's like kind of neck and neck with
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp
Well,
in
let
that
me
regard.
ask. Let me just throw
Mm.
out to our resident specialist
prefer-
Nico, who has said
Nico
repeatedly
did
that
say-
he
no, Nico
loves these
said-
movies.
That's
Yeah,
what he said
yeah,
in this,
I-
this right
Oh,
here.
let me throw this out though, Nico. I know you said that you want to put it above Ant-Man. Let me task you, Nico. Who do you think we should toast to with this movie?
was wondering.
Who in this movie is toastable? Because I initially said, well, of course, Courtney Cox, and then McCurdy said, she didn't die, and I was like, wait, what? So that kind of like,
He's the
if
only
she
person that
died, of
came back,
course
though.
we would toast to her, but she didn't die. So Nico, who do you think we should toast to? SB says Wes Craven. Wes Craven died in 2015, right?
Okay, it
but,
was delayed due to COVID, so that makes sense.
I'd be okay. I actually would be okay with toasting Wes Craven because he's the man. But while Nico
and he's
is,
rolling over in his grave.
talking about
It's
that,
nothing to do with
while-
this movie.
Yeah, while Nico is hopefully still watching and figuring that out, I'm going to bring up one of my favorite, but no, I think my all-time favorite meta horror movie commentary flick, which is Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in
that's
the
a good one.
Woods is one of those movies that took a genre, let's call it a subgenre, and owned it completely, right? Just took it and just said everything. Like, nobody ever needs to make another movie about a cabin in the woods horror flick, because Cabin in the Woods took the whole idea, wrapped it up, owned it, and was just like, here you go. This is everything you need to know about that subgenre. Nobody needs to ever say anything more. We own it now. And honestly, like, when it comes to, we've said repeatedly that, I mean, anybody on YouTube should love and adore Red Letter Media. But Red Letter Media, the one review of theirs that I think is bad is their review of Cabin in the Woods. I remember watching it and being like, somehow these guys don't understand this movie. They were like, what's up with these gods? They didn't like it. And they were like, who are these gods? And what's the purpose of these gods? I was like, dude, the gods they're representative of the audience. They're us, the people watching it, and are, this arbitrary desire to watch like people be sacrificed or whatever. That's voyeurism. That's us as an audience watching it. So like Cabin in the Woods didn't need a sequel. Cabin in the Woods is its own thing, right? It's just one movie that perfectly encapsulates the subgenre of horror of a Cabin in the Woods horror movie. And it's perfect. Beyond that, my worry with Scream is it was complete, right? After 3 movies, it was complete. Then they did 4 because it was about remakes. So naturally, Wes Craven dusted off his camera and made 4 to comment on the state of the film industry
Kevin Williamson.
regarding remakes.
Hey,
Yeah,
Kevin
him
Williamson
too.
did write the script to that one. So yeah, I don't give all the credit to Wes.
No, but okay, yeah, granted, both of them,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
then 5 comes about and has something to say. It's like a boxer coming out of retirement to be like, you know what, I got to beat up on these younglings who don't understand, right? So Wes Craven is just like, let me make 4 to shut everybody the hell up, and then they make 5 to shut everybody the hell up, right? It's like I mean, talking about toxic fandom and all that stuff. It's great. And then this one comes out and it's just a run-of-the-mill horror movie. And I'm like, what was the point? Like, what would, there was no Cabin in the Woods level commentary to this movie. It was just a continuation of 5. So it's just not a Scream movie, and it's very unfortunate. So all that being said, you know,
I still think it was
I
more
could-
enjoyable than Ant-Man.
think
and
so?
why would you say it's more enjoyable?
I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Yes, same.
Ant-Man was just silly's not the right word. I don't know how to trying to figure out how to put it in
I
terms.
think
I mean,
this
I would
movie-
definitely rather rewatch Scream 6 than Ant-Man. Ant-Man, I don't know. I think I was just more bored.
Really?
And Scream 6, it's not as
Holds you a
screamy
little
as
more?
the other Screams, but it is still, an enjoyable slasher thriller movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the main ideas of these movies is I think the more horror movies anybody watches, you take for granted murder, right? If anybody out there, how many of us have seen so many murders take place, whether it be video games or movies, right? But if you actually did it, it would just be this life-changing event. To actually go through with that type of thing would be, I mean, it's literally crime and punishment. And that's what's fun about these movies, is to see people where, especially with 5, right? The line between, one of the heavy themes of Scream in general is the line between reality and storytelling is blurred. They say it all the time. Like in the first movie, Billy Loomis says it's all one big movie, right? And that's the theme throughout the whole series is, one of my favorite tropes is that every time that the killer is unmasked, they suddenly go from being somewhat reserved to everything's like this big, like they're just psychotic, like out of nowhere. And that was the cop in this one, right? And his 2 kids, the cop and his 2 kids who ended up being the killers. They hammed it the fuck up. Like, suddenly everything's like, like everything's like big and energetic and just like, and they don't give a goddamn about taking a life, right? And that goes back. What I did like about the opening of this was that moment where Jason Carvey, or whatever his name was, the guy who killed the blonde professor, and then he got killed. When Ghostface asks him to describe what it's like to take a life, he says something along the lines of, with every subsequent stab, she became less and less of a human. She became more animal. And then she eventually turned into meat. And I think stuff like that is meaningful within this collection of stories that's all about how the more movies you watch, the more desensitized you become. The whole crux of the second movie is that the bad guy's going to blame his murder spree on the movies, right? He's going to say, it's not my fault. The movies made me do it. And then they do that again in 5. It's like, I was radicalized by online forums and so on and so forth. So that stuff I appreciate, because if any one of us actually committed a murder, you would feel bad. Unless you're legitimately a psychotic, you think you could just do it without feeling. But when the time actually came, undoubtedly you would feel the death of your soul, right? And so I think it's something to contemplate as you're watching these. We're all so desensitized by repeated just seeing death all the time, but how would it really be? And so I think that's an important part of all these movies. But then this one was kind of motivated by just simple revenge. So as opposed to somebody out for glory or a murderous cult that was like ridiculous but would have been fun, I am kind of tempted to put it below Ant-Man, but I'm also, I think we all agree it's below Missing, and we agree it's above Magic Mike.
Sure.
Between Ant-Man and this might be more of a complete movie. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
It's more complete.
I'm waiting
I didn't
on
have that.
yay or nay. They're both sequels.
I
Here's
didn't. I
They're
didn't.
both part of
I-
franchises. They're both sequels. There's both ongoing. Like,
Yeah.
even though it's the third movie, it's whatever. It's a part of a larger narrative, right? They're both large narratives. There's a lot of shit that goes on in all these other movies that you kind of have to understand. There's like, it makes sense why these movies would be next to each other. Like, we've talked
Yeah.
about it multiple times, but it's like, yeah, they're both franchises. They both have stuff that like you have to see other movies to kind of understand where these movies are at. They're both popcorny movies, even though one's a horror movie and one's like a action sci-fi movie. It's like they're still like very close to the niche. And I think I'm struggling because like Ant-Man and the Wasp, I still had a great time watching. There weren't as many moments where I felt like I was getting pissed off at the screen, because at least at the end of the day, I could turn my brain off and be like, this movie's stupid, but I'm still enjoying giant man mowing people down and all that stuff. Like, that was still fun.
And
There was fun,
Majors is amazing.
like there's fun performances by a lot of the actors in the movie. Like, I still enjoyed seeing Bill Murray. I still enjoyed I enjoyed MODOK. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Even though the don't be a dick line was like dumb, like it was
I liked
still
it.
kind of funny. The thing that like took me out of that movie was just the movie didn't have any cojones, and like could have done something major at the end of that movie. It just decides not to. That's where I'm at with that movie. Like, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I liked about it.
I think just holistically, is that the word? I mean,
It's a word.
WHOLE as
Yeah.
a whole.
Yeah.
I am starting to lean. I'm kind of agreeing with Nico where Scream 6, even though it has its own shortcomings within its own franchise, it is more complete and more enjoyable than
I think so.
Ant-Man really does. Like, even down to the ending where, you know, Ant-Man and the Wasp are standing there, and then suddenly the portal opens behind them, and it's like, let's go
And
home. And again, a woman in my
this
theater
movie has
went,
that same
she went,
moment. Or it's like,
"What?
oh, Chad, you're still alive? This movie still has that
stuff
moment
sucks.
too. That's what I'm like.
That stuff does suck, but
Yeah.
that's I think it's less impactful than something like with Ant-Man. It was a logic thing. It was just like, wait, like, oh, he just gets out of the situation. Whereas that was because every single one of the Scream movies has, oh, it turns out so and so survived, right? Like, all the Gale,
But
just
not everybody
survives all the time, and it's like Dewey survives, and he's carted away, and somebody's always carted away in the hospital. And I, of course, agree with you that Chad should have died. My God, Chad should just be dead, and that would it automatically
or at
be
least
better.
Gale. And one of
both.
Chad or
Gale
his
should be dead, and
sister,
Chad should be
one
dead.
of those
Like,
two should have died.
Mindy could have been dead too. But like,
yeah,
that's where I'm at. I think
but at least Mindy shows up.
When Mindy
shows up to say, "Oh no, I missed the monologue." Like, that's her being alive is worthy of that joke. Is like, her being alive is at least worthy of a film joke of like, "Oh no, I missed the bad guy monologue." You know, she shows up. She's like, "Oh guys, I figured it out," and they're like, "Oh yeah, like we've already been through it." She's like, "Damn it, I missed the monologue again." That is at least worthy of her surviving. But her brother should have died, and Gale should have died. But between like all the serious elements of Scream 6 versus Ant-Man, really just kind of being bland. So
you
far
want to
as,
take,
like,
you want to give it to Scream 6 is what you're saying.
As
between those two, Scream 6 is the better movie. And I think most people, I think most people would say that. That's what I was like. That's what I went into this one, and I'm like, yeah, because I went in, I looked at the list, I was like, probably going to go at number 5, but I could be persuaded either way because I wasn't a huge fan of this movie. You kept talking about meta stuff. I was just talking about a movie as a slasher in general. Felt like the movie just didn't have balls where it should have had balls, and like that was my kind of that's what was driving me for this film, where it's like that's what I felt was missing, and like that's where I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, maybe, because I feel like most people would say, oh, it's better than Ant-Man and the Wasp because Ant-Man and the Wasp got shit on by every critic. This movie got a lot more praise, and I'm just like, they have very similar problems.
This right here,
they should be next to each
this
other.
from Nico.
They're
Ant-Man was just so bland.
and I think it's a
I was
preference
disappointed
thing.
in that movie. I wasn't in Scream 6. I
I
am
didn't
disappointed
leave
in
Scream 6 thinking, and I feel like I did feel that way with Ant-Man.
I felt like that with this movie more than I did with Ant-Man. But
I
I would.
Okay.
But if you guys are
I had
both
a
like,
decent time at Scream
but
6.
here's the thing: if you guys are both like, no, it's above Ant-Man, I'm like, fine. Like I'm not. It doesn't like I'm not like you guys are out of line. Like it's just like no, that's again these movies
Yeah.
are like neck and neck. Like that's to me in my head. I'm like yeah, they're perfectly next to each other.
Yeah.
So no,
I think for me it would just be if
go
it's
number 5.
between the two. If it's between and again, so at this point it is between Ant-Man and Scream.
Yeah.
I do think there is just a more completeness, regardless of all the
I don't
trash I've
agree with
talked
that
about. Scream,
assessment.
it's a little.
I don't
more
agree with that
complete.
assessment, but like yeah.
And why
Just
is that? Why is it less complete?
Because
than
your
Ant-Man?
term is saying like the film is more complete. Like that doesn't resonate with me because both these movies still pay out at least their endings. Like they still like in Ant-Man and the Wasp, they still I don't know, they still like they get to the quantum realm, they defeat Kang, they get out of the quantum realm. Like to me, that's still it's a complete movie. This movie, it's like we're a slasher movie. We're supposed to kill people. We didn't kill anybody. Like I'm like, I don't know how you're assessing
and that
completeness.
is weak. Ugh. Not
You know,
killing
how you're
anybody
assessing-
really is.
That's
such a
what
bummer.
that's what bothers me about this movie. It's like you're telling me like,
Yeah.
but then again, guys, again, like I'm saying, like
But nobody died
they're
in Ant-Man. Who died in Ant-Man? Like
the-
if
you know who
old
died in
man
Ant-Man?
Ant-Man had
Charlie.
died.
Some
Charlie,
ants,
you know
maybe?
who died in Ant-Man? That guy with the beam head. That guy died. Beamhead guy died. Okay,
yeah,
guys.
yeah. But
Yeah,
had
but no, but-
had
Yeah,
he was
Hank
cool.
Pym died, I'd be like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
meaningful.
Somebody needed
But
to
no,
die in
again,
that movie.
again,
but no.
like I said in the short review, it's like a glutton with their butthole sewn shut. Nobody ever dies, but
Yeah.
they just keep
But
adding
Charlie,
more characters.
All that being
Ugh.
said, I know, like, but Nico's saying all the movies bland. I'm like, yeah, but like, Scream didn't do the thing that it should have done. Like, you got to kill people, and you can't just like save everybody and say that's like subverting expectations, because that's just saying fuck the genre. That's what that's saying. So
Okay,
that's where
okay.
I'm like,
when I left, I thought that Gale was dead. So me
Yeah.
being wrong about that, like
I don't
changes
care
things,
either way.
right? Because
Yeah.
the core 4 being alive, I'm like, okay,
you
that's
think?
I
Yeah.
guess that's okay
job
so long
killing
as Gale's dead. But then finding out that Gale is alive, I'm like, fuck you. This is so stupid.
Yeah.
She should be dead. It's like killing off Leia. You know, it's like
Yeah.
kill Han Solo and then kill Leia and then kill Luke. But like, god damn it, they just fuck, and then that would be that would follow along with their whole thing of legacy characters.
could've-
But they didn't.
yeah.
They
didn't
should
do
have
that.
killed off either Gale or Sydney, and they didn't kill because they fucking killed off Dewey in 5. Then that means kill off Gale.
Kill off Gale.
But they didn't. That's so dumb.
I don't know. But that's why I'm like, I don't care. If you guys are on board with it being above Ant-Man, I think the movies are in the same
think it
ballpark.
Belongs above it.
They're in the same ballpark.
I do
It's just
too.
I have
Yeah.
mixed feelings about both, because there are things about Ant-Man that I'd like. I really enjoyed certain aspects of Ant-Man a lot more than this movie, but this movie
Like
had
what?
some really
Like what?
good,
Like what?
again, like I said, a lot of the performances in this movie, some of the action sequences I thought were really entertaining. But this movie, hold on.
No.
Hold on.
Why
Hold
is
on.
Why do you? What are the certain aspects of Ant-Man that you think are better?
As far as
than
this,
this.
just the movie, let's see. I liked Bill Murray's performance in the movie. I know
Fuck
it's I know we
his whole scene was.
hold
stupid.
on. Don't just knock everything I say before I finish. Jesus Christ. That's your like go-to. Oh, fuck
Ghost
it.
face
Fuck
killer.
What? Knock.
My
that
people's like
shit
you with
off.
me wet in the front, in the back. Killer
Jonathan
bees on
Majors.
attack.
Here's the other thing. Does this movie have like a standout performance? It doesn't. Ant-Man
No.
did. It had one of the best performances as far as actors
Jonathan
we've been
Majors.
talking about. He had Jonathan
Yeah.
Majors, who I think was a huge pull for that movie. It had it
Sure.
has spectacle. What What else does this movie have that the other one doesn't? I think the fucking Helm's Deep scene with the ants is fucking great. The MODOK thing with the
Helm's
fucking "you're a
Deep.
dick" is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, there's all those things. But
I mean, the
Charlie,
don't be a
Charlie,
dick thing is stupid, but I
it's
loved
stupid,
MODOK.
but it's
I
fucking
Loved
funny.
MODOK.
You do have a father-daughter relationship where they at least attempt to try to fucking go with it, versus this movie has the sister-sister relationship that they just said, fuck it, we're going to the end of the movie. And this has weird Billy Loomis ghost thing that is like, it's in the movie, but it doesn't have a true payoff.
No,
and I wonder if they're
all
trying
that
to
is
save it.
crap. All of that is crap. The Billy Loomis stuff is
Billy Loomis stuff was crap in the last movie.
Okay.
And they didn't pay off on it.
It would have paid off in this movie if she would have been the killer. How great would it have been had she been the killer, right?
Mhm.
How else does she have all these, how else did somebody compile all of these things unless they were an insider, right? Like, oh, it turns out that she would black out and her dad, Billy Loomis, his spirit would control her body. And that's how she has all of these masks and has all this memorabilia. But instead, just some dude got a hold of all of it. And the way they excuse it is, oh, cops like money, so you just pay off the cops. And somehow one douchebag managed to compile. That's what I mean. It would have been better had there been a cult that got all this stuff versus one guy got all this stuff. And then his dad is like, yeah, he loved the Stab movies so much that I was willing to just like kill for like it really is stupid. And like it's supposed to be stupid. Yeah, it's supposed to be stupid, but it's like the better version would have been this whole suicide cult rather than the father of the bad guy of the last one.
But Charlie, let me talk like real quick the things that I think Scream 6 has that are good that I'm like I liked, again, the set piece sequences. We talked about the intro. I like the intro. The subway sequence, the bodega with the shotgun, that was cool. The ladder thing was fucking dumb, but like some people found it funny, whatever. Like there's that.
Yeah, here, everybody get on this ladder that I just
that fucking ladder I guess, is fucking
rather
dumb.
Than, I guess maybe if you were in a high rise, you'd have a ladder,
yeah.
but like that wasn't a collapsible ladder, right?
That was a weird.
That ladder was so long
like
that you
when Ghostface starts rattling the ladder, when he starts rattling the ladder, that's when the movie turned into a scary movie for like 2 seconds. It was like, oh, you gotta get off the ladder. You gotta get off the ladder. That was dumb. But you know what, Charlie? I can tell you why you're gonna put it above Ant-Man and the Wasp. You ready? Are you ready? Because it doesn't. You know why? Because Scream 6 doesn't have Baskin Robbins.
It doesn't have that.
Doesn't have Baskin Robbins, and that's why you're going to put it above Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's the only reason. But I do feel like Jonathan Majors and some of these other things are like stronger. It doesn't.
It has levels of stupidity that Scream 6 doesn't. Scream 6 doesn't. It has questionable moments, but it doesn't have any stick out moments of, God, that was so stupid, right? Whereas the Baskin Robbins thing really is.
I just think these movies are very neck. I think because we're arguing this, I think these movies are just very neck and neck, and I do think it's a preference thing over the movies itself, because I do think they both.
You just convinced me. It's
above Ant-Man.
It's above Ant-Man.
Yeah, I just think these movies are preference based.
Right
I don't give a shit.
Which one would it be?
If I had to pick, I don't know. It's just like you're telling me the movie
I would watch
that
Scream
has
6 again.
You're telling me the movie that has Jonathan Majors, the guy who should fucking win an Oscar, is in a shittier. Like in the movie that he will. But you're like telling me like, yeah, the movie that doesn't have any good performances that stand the fuck out, maybe Jenna Ortega, but just because she was in Wednesday and everyone's talking about her. And then, but like, that's the one good performance in the movie.
And what?
Dan's is tired.
Baskin Robbins, Paul Rudd deserves an Oscar.
She's sex positive.
Sex positive Paul Rudd. Do not get me going on a rant about how stupid the sex positive thing is, but I don't give a shit. I think there's a lot of as I said before, I think as a whole, Scream 6 is better than all the misgivings of Ant-Man. So I'm keen to put it above Ant-Man.
If you want to put it above 5, that's fine. I'm not super mad about it. I'm like, I think they're a good pair. They should be next to each other. It's just I think honestly, I think for me it's personal preference where you could have walked out of Ant-Man and Wasp and really enjoyed it, and you could have been pissed at Scream 6 how I was, or you could have been the other way like Nans and been like, I enjoyed Scream 6 more than Ant-Man and the Wasp being bland. Like I think it's a personal preference when it comes down to
I
two.
think
But
it's
I do think they have very similarities.
It's a weak Scream movie, but Ant-Man is a weak Marvel movie.
Yeah.
So, and Magic Mike is a weak Magic Mike movie. Knock at the Cabin is, piss. Plain is dicks, and Cocaine Bear is a pile of shit. So, all right. You guys want to lock it in then at 5?
Lock her in. I got to go to bed.
5.
But I want to stay.
Is Scream no wait, VI.
Yep. You're right.
Scream
the other one would
VI.
be 4.
And then as usual, I have to replace all these. Boop doop. Boop doop.
What great technology.
Yeah, nobody watched.
I can't wait till we get
to
I can't wait till we get to like 20. You're gonna be so mad.
I'll have to switch at some point. I'll have to switch technology and move to something.
You'll have to
better,
find something that works.
Average sociopath. Dude, who are you? What's up, dude? Average sociopath says respectfully, the only good movie on this list is Infinity Pool. Well,
Infinity Pool.
Average sociopath, you are
good.
amongst friends, brother. Welcome in. Here,
not your friend.
There we go. Boom. You are Nans is your enemy, but you're amongst friends with McCurdy and I. We agree. I think in the beginning it was like we have these themes of family amongst all these. Now there's these themes of like everything that made a certain franchise fun in the past is now kind of gone. Like Scream 6 it's not fun. Whereas all the other Scream movies are fun. Magic Mike, the previous movies were fun. Last Dance is not fun.
I think you're gonna enjoy Fast and Furious 10 then.
I hope
with the themes of family, and they really have jumped the shark on all their movies now.
But that's not the point of those movies, though. So I think that's
I love those movies.
I like Fast and Furious movies too. But if we're gonna when we get to those movies, when we get to those movies, we are gonna have to judge that Fast and Furious 5, is it as good as the other ones, and then rate it to this, because we know like within the Fast franchise, like, oh, is this a better or worse one? And I feel like that's kind of how we did with Scream. It's like, is this a better or worse Scream? If it's not firing on the cylinders that it's meant to fire on, is it higher or lower than where it's at on this list? But that's here nor there.
Yeah.
So
we figured it out, fellas. Okay. Nico. I think Nico said might as well do Courtney Cox.
All right, guys.
Did he?
I don't know.
I wish she would have died. She would be.
He said, "Okay."
But like,
here's the thing. He said, hold on. He said Courtney Cox, or he was also saying Roger.
The voice.
Roger Jackson, who does L. Jackson, who does the voice. So
yeah,
Charlie, just
I would do that. I would do him
not
over
West.
her.
No, you can't do West, because West has literally nothing to do with this movie. If this was 5, you could do West because they did it in honor of West, but like West I'm sorry, West has nothing to do. And you can make that argument like West made the movies. I'm like, the 5 was good and had nothing to do with West. So like it doesn't matter. But Charlie, before we do the toast, you got to put this one up at least. Just let me have my joke.
Oh.
If we were going to toast a Gale tonight. It's Fat
Monica. Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay, his name's Roger though, right?
I have
Roger.
Hold on, I got it. I already made it.
No, but I remember I pulled
Roger L. Jackson.
Roger
so
L.
Here you go.
Jackson.
Here you go. I got it right here, and boom for Roger.
The guy
I
with
prefer
the
that.
voice of
I
these
prefer
movies.
that. So is he the voice of
He's the
what are
voice
they-
of Ghostface. He does the voice for
no, but I mean
Why is there a Powerpuff Girl behind him?
because he does
Powerpuff
the
Girl.
voice
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Mojo.
Powerpuff Girl.
He does the voice. He does the voice of Mojo Jojo in Powerpuff Girls.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
that's like
so he's
okay,
more tied
so-
to that franchise. But yeah,
But now,
he's-
of course, we're gonna toast to him. Like, yeah, he is the again. Had Courtney Cox died, I'd be all about toasting her. But he
don't die
is
in this movie.
he is at the center of this franchise. If anything's good, it's that voice. That voice is so
Voice is amazing.
perfect, right?
Sydney.
And he spans the
Oh.
whole franchise. So I'm all about this.
What's your
I'm all
favorite
about-
scary movie?
Yeah.
Scary
Love it.
movie. Yeah.
Anyone
So, all right.
anyone watching this now or later, like, subscribe, become a member, join the Charlie wants to whisper something. Join the Discord that is always active.
Yes, shilling nens.
Someone had to-
shilling.
What are you shilling nens?
All right, here's
anyway,
to Roger.
To Roger, thank you for hopefully they keep paying you good work. You're the man. To Roger. Cheers.